right, hey, welcome everyone. Chris Petri, thanks so much for coming by. We're going to have a great time today. We're going to actually put together about a dozen still life compositions that are going to help us prepare for future still life paintings where we're going to do a larger composition with many different components in it. Let's say fruits, vegetables, flowers, maybe a duck decoy or a bird or a pencil, a pen, a paintbrush, any kind of things you'll find, ordinary things around the house, the kitchen, your place, flowers from outdoors. But you can go to a flower shop, pick up some flowers. You'll have a lot of fun. We'll cover all of this in this video. It'll be a lot of excitement as we just go through each one of these still life compositions in separate form, and then later on, maybe in a week or two or a month, we'll put together a full painting and we'll mix a lot of these into the painting, or two. Maybe we'll do a few. You let me know in the comment section if you want to do a larger painting or if you just want to stick with these type of compositions, but let's get into it. And this is the first 6, and then we have the other here. So you'll see these other 6 compositions that we do toward the second half of the session here. And again, they're all fun, all straightforward. I cover every single detail you could imagine with all the methods and techniques that I use, how I'm doing everything from the very minute detail to just the overall ideas of what we're doing with paint washes and colors and things like that. So everything's covered here. Get ready, get set, let's go. All right, so we're getting started. You just saw some of the finished compositions that we did. Aren't they wonderful? We have some really, just lots of fun creating some of these smaller components of larger compositions first. So again, the whole key to this is let's practice some of the smaller parts of, let's say, a larger still life painting that we're going to want to paint, where we might have some flowers in a vase and maybe some fruit, maybe some bottles of wine, a bottle of beer, a Shorebird, all these, cappuccino cup, a coffee mug, a tea cup, whatever it is. Let's practice and work on some smaller compositions first. Maybe we'll do 6 or 12 or 18 of these, and we'll see, maybe we'll work for the next couple hours or so. We'll work on these, and then in the upcoming near future, we'll create a painting with many of these components all together in one painting, and you'll look forward to seeing that. So I'm hoping you will subscribe in the right-hand side below so you don't miss a thing and you can stick with us here. But we will do eventually a larger still life painting. I promise you that. And we've done a lot in the past, so you can always look up some of my other still life paintings by just typing in Chris Petri still life paintings, and you'll find a lot I've done on YouTube already, maybe 20, 30 paintings already over the last number of years. But in any case, let's start working on some of these smaller compositions first. I know it's going to give you a lot of success if you're practicing smaller compositions first of these smaller components, and then eventually, after maybe practicing these for a few weeks, then you get into the larger painting where you put many of these together in one painting, and you'll already have painted them a number of times. Makes it much easier for you. So you will have absolutely a ton of fun. Let's get excited. Let's get started. Okay, so let's start out with our first few items and components of our still life. Let's do maybe a lemon and a coffee mug. Very simple. So I'm just going to start here. I'll use a dark pencil so you can see the pencil line as I draw. And I'm just going to start out with a lemon. I'll do a lemon shape here, like this. And then there's a little bit of a shadow here under the lemon, so I'll put that shadow in with my pencil. And I'm hoping that you'll see the drawing as I go here. And we're just going to have fun, enjoy the process. Just follow along as you go, nice and easy. I'll kind of cover this at a good pace so that you'll be able to follow along. I'm not going to rush it or anything like that. And we'll see how we make things happen here. So let's do the coffee mug over here, right behind the lemon. So I'll draw the coffee mug first here, and maybe we'll have a little bit of a oval there. And then we'll have the coffee mug there, and then maybe we'll put a handle on that. Like that. Okay. And then there's maybe a small shadow under here too, where the coffee cup is. And then maybe, why not? Let's put a little background, interesting background here maybe. We'll have a little background. So maybe this is a table a white tablecloth maybe, and then we have the background here. Like this. Okay, simple enough. And the first thing we like to do is when we do our pencil sketch first, then we just like to ask ourselves the question, where do we see the light coming from? Maybe the light's coming from up top shining down. Maybe the light's coming from the left over here to the right. Maybe the light might be coming from here going across this way. So we just want to be aware of that. And in this painting, I'm going to actually create the light coming from this direction here. So I just want to make sure I have that kind of in my mind. And I'll put a small light insignia up here, which is a spotlight. Like that. So I'll just put a little light insignia up on the corner of my composition, just so I don't lose track of that. I want to make sure I keep that in mind. And then I'll put a small, maybe we'll have a little small blue stripe over here on the coffee cup up top. Like that. And then maybe there's a small highlight on the lemon. We'll leave a little white spot there on the lemon. And I think that's pretty good. That looks pretty much all the pencil lines we're going to need and pencil drawing that we'll need. The basic components, the lemon, coffee cup, drawn in, our shadows. And of course, the most important thing here as we're finishing up our drawing is knowing where the light source is. This way, when we start painting, we'll make this side of the mug and the lemon lighter on this side, the left side. And then over here on the right side of the lemon and the mug, it's going to be a little bit darker and more shadows because the light's coming from, again, here going across this way, like this, shining this way. All right, and we'll have a white tablecloth here, and we'll have a little background color maybe here. We'll put just some color here on the background, maybe a little bit of interesting colors we'll do there. So first thing I'll do is I'll choose my brush. I think I'll go with a number 8, Da Vinci Maestro travel brush, Pure Kolinsky Hair 1503. So this is the 1503 Germany travel brush, Da Vinci, Pure Kolinsky 1503 Germany, and it's a number 8 brush. I'll use fresh, clean water, and I'll always mention that, as you can tell, I have a rubberized water container, so it's nice and quiet on camera here when we're making videos. I used to use those metal and plastic containers, and then when I tap my brush on the water containers, it would make a really loud noise and things like that. So I think that was a little bit unpleasant to listen to. So I got these rubberized ones now, so they're really quiet. I could tap my brush on here, and you can barely hear that. But these are great also, too, these rubberized water containers. They're just fantastic. I have incidentally, all my art supplies are in my comment section below. So in the comment section below, I have links to Amazon, which have all my art supplies, my paints, colors of paints, paint brushes, water containers, paper, things like that. Also, I want to say that you can get the styrofoam fruits and vegetables and things like that on eBay. I don't have that necessarily in the description box below, but just remember, you can go on eBay and find used, it's called faux fruit or plastic fruit. You can purchase that on eBay for very inexpensive. You can buy a box of like mixed fruits. It might be like apples, oranges, grapes, whatever, in a box, maybe for like $5 or $10. And then you have you can start your collection of some styrofoam and plastic fruit to work from for your still lifes if you want to, because it's kind of difficult maybe to always have, in stock at your house, like all of the different things that we might be using, apples, oranges, pears, fruits, vegetables, grapes, bananas, peppers, all this types of stuff. We might not always have these handy. So if you can get the styrofoam, and you work with the real thing too if you have it at home, But in any case, we're going to keep just this in mind, fresh, clean water. I'll keep it over here to the right. I always use a tissue or a sponge or a paper towel to take off a little bit of water when I'm working. So whenever I rinse off my brush, I usually go right to the tissue or paper towel or even a sponge you could have next to your water container, like a sponge like this. So I trim this down into a smaller piece. So you have a little sponge and you take a little bit of water off your brush after you rinse your brush off, and maybe a little bit in the tissue, and then you go into your paints. And that's the way I kind of paint. That's just a process I have that I've learned, and work with that all the time for many years. It works really well. So let's start out. So the first thing, we rinsed our brush. We have our brush. It's nice and damp with water. We'll go in and we'll get some of our lemon yellow, cadmium lemon yellow out of our palette. And we'll just go right in and start placing the paint. I have my hand resting on the paper and I'm placing the paint here onto the paper. And I'm working with a pretty large brush. You can kind of see that this brush is pretty large, right? I wouldn't want to be painting this with like this size brush here. I want to have a larger brush like this to paint this because it goes a lot quicker and you can really move at a good pace. So I put the first bit of paint on like so. Then next I will go with a little bit of green, sap green. I'll put that here, and I'll just put a little bit of sap green in the paint there, just to give it a little bit of maybe a little bit of raw umber too. And then I'll just blend that in a little bit to give it a little bit of a darker, and then some cobalt blue for the shadow. So we'll take some cobalt blue for the shadow with a little bit of raw umber and blend that right into the shadow like that. Maybe even a little bit of French ultramarine blue at the very underside here. Like that. Let's put a little bit of shadow under the mug here. While we're doing this, while we have that French ultramarine blue, raw umber, and cobalt blue, let's add a little bit to the bottom of the mug there. Maybe even a little bit over here on the bottom of this handle. And then maybe a little bit of French ultramarine blue over here. Let's start working our darks. So now you're going to see that I'm just going to go working with the darks of the painting. I rinse off my brush, dry off the water, and then I just work that blue across here. Pick up some more cobalt blue maybe, like that. And let's say it's a little bit lighter over here. Let's lift up a little bit of that there, since that's the light side, and this is the darker side over here. I just wanted to mention that if you need to lighten up an area quick, you can always take your tissue or paper towel and just touch down onto the paper, and that gives you a little bit of a lighter. You can kind of correct an area if you've added too much paint to it. But you can see that that's the lighter part here. The light's coming this way. So this will be the light of the, and then I'll just take a little bit of the shadow color here and just put a little bit of shadow over here. Like that. A little bit of shadow color. And then I rinse off my brush, dry off the excess water on the tissue, and then just blend that color over here like this. Very simple. Okay. And then a little bit of shadow over here on the underside of the handle, like that. And then if you see a little bit of the blue leaking into your shadow colors on your white mug, just lift up with the tissue like that. And you can see how that really can work wonders. And then we add a little bit of more, maybe we'll add a little, let's add a little lemon yellow into that paint there. Reflected light. So the reflected light of the lemon here kind of shines onto the mug over here. So you see a little bit of the lemon yellow on the mug here. And already I'm very happy and pleased with this. I think we're really going at a good pace, and we're also getting a good looking likeness of what we're seeing. And I'll put a little bit of shadow on the underside of this lemon here. So you can kind of see how we've gotten light and shadow here. I will cover over that pencil mark there a little bit if I can. And then maybe a little bit of blue too on the top of this for a little bit of shadow in the mug here, at the top of the mug. The inside of the mug. Like that. And maybe some splashing for good luck. And then also maybe a little bit of color here on the background. So we want to do a little background color just to kind of point out that we do have the background here, which is behind the table. So we have the tabletop here with a white tablecloth. And then we have the background color of just a little bit of shadow colors maybe. Bit of French ultramarine blue over here. So don't be afraid to add a little bit of colors here and there, just to have a little bit of an interesting look. A couple of splashes, a little bit of raw umber here. Warm it up a little bit maybe, the background. Like that. And I just added a little bit of extra water there. If you want to, you can lift up a little bit of paint like this as you work. You might say, oh, I want to add less paint. I want to have more white paper. And that's fine. And again, you can just add a little more of, again, a really nice hint of really exciting color, a contrast of tonal value. You can add a little bit like onto your coffee cup here, like that, and then blend it over a little bit. But you can kind of see we've have our first composition done. We accomplished what we wanted to. We wanted to make sure we just did a good, simple pencil drawing. Doesn't have to be perfect. I've been painting and drawing these types of scenes for 15, 20 years. So if you're just starting out with watercolor, or if you've only been working a couple years with watercolor, don't feel like you have to get everything perfect. Get yourself your best try and your best effort at getting the mug and the lemon in this picture, paint, in the pencil drawing into this composition here. These are, just so we can start out technically accurate, these squares or rectangles are approximately 5 inches by 5 inches. So these are basically like squares, 5 inch by 5 inch squares, and I have 6 of them on this one paper. And the paper overall is about 10 by 14. So you can just work out 6 divisions, equal divisions in your paper, whatever 11 by 14 sheet of paper, whatever you have. You can make it larger or smaller, and then you just try to scale your compositions the way I have it. So maybe here the mug and the lemon take up, maybe 2 inch by 2 inch space here in the painting. 2 inch by 2 inch space in this square composition is the lemon in the mug, coffee cup. So let's move on to our next composition. We're going to have a lot of fun. I'm just going to take a quick break. And again, I always mention to thank you for coming by. You're going to have a lot of fun. Again, we're going to work on this for the next couple hours. Grab yourself your favorite cup of coffee, cup of tea, whatever you like to have for a beverage. Relax. take some breaks here and there as you're working. I like to take breaks, so you're going to hear me say that often. Let's take a break. I'm taking a break right now, and then we'll move on to our next one right away. All right, let's move on to our second composition here. Let's use a tomato and a green pepper. So I'll just set this up across from me on my table, and I have a white background. At my table here, I just have a white piece of white foam board and a white piece of foam board on the table. So it's a backboard of white foam board and then a table of white foam board. So I'm just seeing nothing but white and then these two items here. So I'm going to set those up and we'll get those started. And again, let's have fun with this. So let's start our tomato over here. Maybe we'll start our tomato here. Okay. And then I would say, let's make the light going the same place this way here. Light coming from this way. Let's make our light insignia up here. Basically a black triangle with some lines showing that the light's coming this way. Okay, and then I'll put the pepper over here to this side. Pepper like that. That looks good. Wow, we have a tomato and a pepper. Everything's coming along really nicely. Let's make the table, the back of the table over here like so. And that's it. Your drawing is pretty much good. Maybe we'll get a little, maybe a little stem from the apple here. I mean from the tomato. And then let's begin our painting. So again, I'm going to use the same brush, the travel brush, Da Vinci number 8 travel brush. It's a pure Kolinsky sable hair brush. The model number is a 1503, made in Germany. And these are great travel brushes too, by the way. You can take these when you're done painting, do that, screw it together, put it into your pocket, into a duffel bag, a purse, a backpack. So if you're outdoors on vacation or on a weekend getaway, or if you're just, around the local area where you live and you want to do a little outdoor painting, you bring yourself a sketchbook, maybe like one of these bound sketchbooks like this with the ring binder here like this, sketchbook like this. You bring this, you sit this on your lap, you sit in a chair or a park bench or wherever you find a place to sit, maybe to relax, and you do a couple little drawings of things that you're seeing out in front of you, flowers maybe, or a building that you might find exciting. But these travel brushes are great for that, and you just stow them away, and then when you get out to your location, you open it up and get started with your brush like that. And these are really light and nice and compact, and they have a hole in the top so that when you do put them together and stow them away, that little hole in the top of the brush actually lets the brush hairs air dry, so that your brush will air dry nicely, and you could leave it in your backpack or your purse or your shirt pocket or whatever for days or weeks, and it'll dry nicely and you won't have to worry about it until the next time you go out and paint. But let's get started here. Let's get our tomato going here. Let's get that red, cadmium red. Perfect tomato color. Maybe let's not be a one-hit wonder with our colors. That's always a downer when we're just using one color with our paintings. We have to mix our colors. Let's add more colors. So we'll use cadmium red, dry off a little bit of the paint off the brush, go in with some alizarin crimson too. Let's have a little alizarin crimson mixed in with that cadmium red for our tomato. And then maybe even a little bit of green here. A little bit of green, sap green, for a little bit of, to gray down our red a little bit here and there where the shadows are. Okay, so let's start out with our, and again my brush is just damp. I took the brush, I rinsed it off, took the paper towel or your sponge, whatever you want to use. If you have a sponge again, next to your water container, or you have a paper towel or tissue, you dry off the water first on your sponge or your tissue or your paper towel so that your brush is just damp, and then you go in and get your paint. And this way you have nice, rich, luxurious paint. And this way you're getting in your rich colors that you want. You don't want to go in with watery, puddly colors that start dripping everywhere, and the next thing you know, you're in big trouble. That's the one thing about watercolor. I have to say, this is so important. Watercolor a lot is about controlling your water and paint that you have in your brush. So you can see here, I'm really using just a tiny bit of a damp brush, taking off the water and going into the paint, straight paint. I'll put a little highlight on the tomato over here. And then you can see that if I can control that paint and water ratio, it's really going to be a benefit. So I'll take a little bit of that green just to make some shadow here. You can even take your brush, rinse it off really well, dry off some of the water. You can even make a little bit of a highlight by just lifting up some paint like this. You can even take your tissue, make sure there's no paint on the tissue like this, and then you can even lift up a little bit like this. Then I'd get a fresh tissue here. And you can lift up a little bit of paint like that, and that gives you a little more of a highlight. And you can take your brush again, rinse it off, dry off the water, and just give yourself a little more light on your tomato like that. And then right away, let's get some raw umber and cobalt blue to get a shadow working for us right away. Like that. A little bit of French ultramarine blue for a little bit of the darker, like that. On the very underside, like that. Now, let's do the pepper. Let's get right into the pepper. Again, we're going to use our brush, knowing that the shape of the pepper is much like the brush hairs. See how the brush hair looks almost just like the shape of the pepper? That's just one thing you can keep in the back of your mind. It's just a little tidbit of information. Does that make sense? If you can kind of see how your brush can work for you as an advantage, if you see the shape of your brush matches any shapes in your paintings, you can kind of use that as an advantage. So then all we have to do now is take this. We're going to make our green pepper. So we'll take some sap green. Just mix it out a little bit, you know, get it so that it's like so. Maybe a little bit of French ultramarine blue. Darken it up just a hair. Like that. And then you take your brush and you load up your brush with basically just the tiny bit of water, just only a tiny bit of water. You can see there's no puddles dripping anywhere here. It's just almost straight paint. Take your brush and then you just place your brush right on, you know, you rest your hand on the paper and then you just take your brush and slowly, accurately go down and just touch it right onto the paper and press down and then just move it slightly to the right, and there you have it. You have your first part of your pepper done in great shape like that. Then we'll go around here to this side, underside here. Then we'll rinse off our brush, dry off a little bit of the water. Maybe we'll go with a little bit of a lighter green up top here. So we'll just take a little bit of that cadmium yellow lemon, lighten up the green over here on this side, and then we do that. And we leave a little bit of a highlight, maybe a little bit of a white highlight there on top of the pepper. And I think that looks fine. Then we rinse off our brush again, dry off a little bit of the water. Now we'll do the shadow. So we'll take the shadow, the same thing that we've been doing before, raw umber and cobalt blue for our shadow. And then I'm just going to start the shadow about here and just put it like this, like that. Now, let's take a little bit of that shadow color and do a couple splashes, just to loosen up our painting. Now, if you ever do a couple splashes like this and you say, you know what, Chris, oh wow, I added too many splashes, they don't look good right away. First thing you do, grab your tissue and blot up. And look at how I can make them actually disappear. So if you add too many splashes and you don't think they look good, lift up a few of them. Then you can say, oh, you know what, now I lifted up too many, I need to do a few more. Go back in. There you go back in again. Some green, maybe a couple of green splashes. But add a couple splashes, just a few, just a tiny bit, whatever you want. It's up to you. You're the artist. Add what you want to in your paintings. Delete what you want to out of your paintings. You're in charge of your paintings. And always remember that. You're the one that's taking the time and the effort to create your paintings, so you have the authority to do what you want in your paintings. And you can always change it too. Maybe you'll come back in a month or 2 months later and say, I want to do something different now. And that's fine. You'll do that. You'll change your approach here and there as you go. Especially if you're just starting out in painting with watercolor, you're going to evolve as a watercolor artist. You're not going to be the same a month from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. You'll constantly change and evolve, and you'll always get better too. The more you practice, you're always just going to get automatically better. So you never have to worry about that. So I'm just, again, doing a little bit of background colors here and there so that we can differentiate the background from the tablecloth, which we're just pretending is like a white color. And I'm just adding the same colors in the background here as we used in the painting. So I'm not adding any new colors. I'm just using the cadmium red here, the green here, the blue. Maybe I added a little bit of cerulean blue maybe. Again, too many splashes, you don't like that, not a problem. You just lift up a little bit, twist a little bit like this. If you want, you can go in with some green, sap green, straight paint, and maybe add some more straight paint if you want to kind of give the underside of this pepper a little more darker green color. Then I would rinse off my brush once again, dry off all the water, and then just smooth that new green we just added in there. Like that. You could take a little bit of French ultramarine blue and raw umber and some green. Make a dark kind of mix like that. Straight paint though, no water. And then you can just do a little bit of a stem there on the tomato and a little stem work here on the pepper. And that looks to me fantastic. All right, I'm having a fun time here. I'm hoping you're going to be doing the same where you are. Let's take another break before we get started on our next composition here. But again, the whole goal is let's do a bunch of these first, and then we can take all of these and incorporate them into one painting, one larger painting. So if you painted an apple and a tomato and a pepper and a lemon and a coffee cup first a few times doing these compositions, and then you want to make a larger painting, maybe the whole size of this paper with some flowers and all of these parts, the tomatoes again, peppers, lemon, coffee cup, flowers, you'll be able to create that painting a lot easier because you've already worked on these smaller compositions first. So that's really the great painters in history always worked on smaller compositions first to come up with their more, let's say, their more finished paintings that they were going to put into the galleries or into competitions. So basically that was how they worked. All the great artists worked that way in history. They made small compositions first, out in the field, studies in the studio, studies just like this. And then when they were happy and working on all of these and had some good ideas, then they just took all those ideas and put them onto the canvas in a larger finished painting, which would be like their, again, a gallery painting or a competition style painting that they would be putting in, or in a museum painting. So let's keep having some fun here, and I'll be right back, and we'll start our third composition. And we're going to do a lot more, so I hope you're going to stay tuned. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video so far, and we're going to keep working. Again, I just want to take one quick break, and I'll be right back. All right, we are back, and let's work on something a little different now. Let's shift gears here. We'll do a small beer bottle here and a carnation, a white carnation. Let's try these out. I have this white carnation is actually, plastic and silk flower that I got at the local hobby shop where I live. So don't feel like you have to go out and buy fresh flowers every time you're doing a painting at home. You can always buy some silk flowers and have them on hand, and then whenever you want to create a painting where you're practicing up on some compositions, or you want to even create a finished painting, you can use silk flowers. That's fine. Or you can go out and buy fresh flowers if you want, occasionally, or whenever you want to. It's everyone's different. Everyone's case is different. Some people don't have flower shops right next to their house or nearby. They might have to drive an hour. So it's all up to you. But just be creative with the way you approach your painting. So I'm creative. I have a few flower shops nearby my home, but sometimes they're closed. They're not always open. They're open on, let's say, odd hours sometimes. Sometimes they're open, sometimes they're not. So I just have a bunch of silk flowers at home, and I have them in case I want to work on some flower compositions or paintings, and I have them here. So this is just a silk carnation, white carnation, and a beer bottle. So I'm going to set this up across from me, and then we'll just try it out and see how it looks. Okay, so I'll get my pencil, and I might use a mechanical pencil now, just because my other pencil has a point that's kind of wearing out, and I'm just not going to worry about it too much. So the first thing I'll do is I'll figure out my beer bottle. I think I'm going to put here. So I'm going to start it out down here at the bottom, and I might just rearrange something a little bit. So I sometimes move things around. I hope you don't mind. Okay, so we'll do the beer bottle over here, and I'm just going to go up like this. And I always try to hopefully get the pencil drawing correctly on the first try, but if you don't get the pencil drawing done correctly on that first try, you can always do a little bit of erasing and say, well, where did I go wrong on this? And then I might say, okay, well, I might have made it too thin over here. I might have to thicken it up over here. So I'll erase a little bit over here, and I'll make it thicker over here. And even though it's just a little bit, it makes a big difference, I think, like that. So that's a little better. Then I might say, okay, where's my label? And then my label is, I'm just going to put my label like this, like that. And then the label goes here across like that, like this. And there's a circle there on the label, and it's got a little insignia there. And then here we have red stripe. And that looks pretty good. And then there's maybe some other writing over here, nothing too concerning that I have to get too detailed about, but I think that's good enough. I have the basic idea of what I see here. And there we go. All right, and then again, let's do the light coming from kind of like over here on maybe this side over here. So let's make our light insignia here like this. And I'll keep the back of the table the same here like that. If you want to use a ruler, please do. You can always use a ruler to get the back of your table perfectly straight. You could measure up and say, okay, I'm going to make it 1 inch up from the bottom, or 1.5 inches up from the bottom, 1.5 inches up here, make a mark here, 1.5 inches up here from the bottom, line here, 1.5 inches, make a hash mark, then come across here. And I'm sorry if I didn't do that over here on the previous compositions, but I want to make sure I kind of give you some more options if you want to. So if you're trying to draw this freehand without using a ruler and measurements, that's fine. You can do it that way too. Or you can just measure things too if you want to. Like you kind of find out generally where it's going to go, and then you measure and say, okay, yeah, it's supposed to be about here. What is that? Oh, it's, yeah, 1.5 inches. Well, I'll make the same over here, 1.5 inches. Make the hash mark, and then connect the two hash marks here and here to get your straight line. Well, you just want to avoid maybe getting a line that looks like awkward, like this or like this. Although it could be on an angle too, sometimes, but a lot of times it generally looks better if we just make it a level line across the picture. That usually looks better. So we have that. That's good. And then we're going to actually, let's create our carnation, our white carnation, and it's coming from over here on this, so it's right at all the way at the left, out of the picture actually. So you're just going to see the stem of the white carnation coming across from out of the left side of the picture, and then we're just going to kind of get the basic shape of things with this. And then this petal over here is like this. Okay, and then we go back the other way with the stem, and there's a couple of smaller leaf forms on the stem that you'll see, like this, like that, and I think that's fine. And we just notice that there's some lines that are coming out this way, like that, and I think that's good. And then if you always want to lift up a little bit of pencil lines, once you have your carnation drawn in, you can lift up a little bit of lines if you want to lighten it up a little bit. And then we'll make our light, or we already have our light insignia up here coming from this direction going this way. So we're going to have our shadows over here. So I'll draw in our shadow over here from the beer bottle here, our adult beverage up here, and then there's a little bit of shadowing under this carnation. And that's good. I think where we have everything really set up correctly with our pencil drawing. And then maybe we'll have a couple highlights, maybe a highlight over here. I'll just put a highlight on the bottle, making a note that I'll leave a little bit of white paper there. Maybe another one over here. And that's it. All right, so we've got the pencil drawing done. No reason why you don't want to take, it's a good time to always take a break, let's say. If you've concentrated a lot and you've worked really hard to get your pencil drawing in, that's a perfect time to just take a break for 5-10 minutes, then come back and get ready to paint. Because if you're just going to go right into painting after you've concentrated a lot to get your drawing completed, that can really give you an issue. I'm not saying everybody's the same. Everyone's different. We're all different. So you're the artist. Make your decision on whether you need a break or not by how you feel, and if you feel like you might need a little bit of a break because you need to just like relax a little bit, please do it. I know the temptation is to just go right into the painting after you're done drawing, but I find that most artists probably do need to take a quick break after they're done doing the pencil drawing, just to relax for 5 or 10 minutes and then come back in and start painting, because the drawing is usually a lot more challenging and difficult than the painting is actually. So if you can give yourself that break, you'll be, I think, a lot better off. So does that make sense at all? Well, I hope it does, and give it a try. Try a painting with no breaks, and then try drawing and painting with a few breaks, and especially after you're done drawing, see how it works out. See if you gain some benefit from actually giving yourself a quick, 5-10 minute stretch and relaxation between your drawing, finishing your drawing, and going back in and doing starting your painting. Okay? All right. Let's come right back in a few minutes and we'll start painting. All right, we are back. Let's get started now. Please let me know if you're having a good time. Give me a thumbs up if you're enjoying this video. It's always great if you give a thumbs up. It always just lets people know that you're happy with the video. You're really getting a lot out of it, and then other people will join along and learn more about watercolor. That's all we're here for. We're all here to work together and get better at our watercolors, to have better paintings. That's really, we're always excited about wanting to create better paintings and have them come out the way we want them to really look and turn out. So let's keep working on that goal. Let's keep working. So this here is just, again, a spritzer bottle. Holbein makes it. You can get these spritzer bottles in 5 and dime stores, you know, and dollar stores, different ones than Holbein. Holbein makes really good ones, but there's a lot of other great ones out there too that I have myself in my own studio here that I've picked up over the, you know, times that I've gone out and shopped a little bit at the dollar store. And what I wanted to do here was just mention that I like to keep the palette clean, so that's why I'm using the spritzer bottle. And I take a paper towel, and I buy those half-size rolls of paper towel where they're already trimmed in the halves like this, and then I just tear it in half again, and then I want to keep a palette that's kind of clean. I don't want to keep making colors, mixing with colors, mixing with colors, mixing with colors. Then all of a sudden the colors get really dull looking and unpleasant looking. So you want to keep your colors looking fresh and clean. So that's why I will always clean my palette as I go. These first two paintings we were able to just work with the colors, and we didn't really need to tidy up the palette, but right now I think we do. So I'm not going to go too much, I won't get too much ahead of myself, I should say, without cleaning up the palette a little bit and making sure I do that. I'm going to stick with my same trusty number 8 travel brush here as we've been using. I noticed that this red stripe bottle is basically burnt sienna, burnt sienna color, and I get fresh clean water too in my water container. So now my water container is here. I'll put some fresh clean water in there. So I start out with fresh clean water. Each new composition I empty out the water and start with fresh clean water, and it's just over here to the right, my water container. And again, you can have a sponge next to your water container. You can have a few of these folded up next to your water container, so that when you rinse off your brush, you can just take some of that water off your brush right away, and then come over here and pick up your paints and start mixing. So I'll do this. I noticed that it is a burnt sienna, maybe a little bit of raw umber mixed in there too. And then I will add a little bit of cobalt blue, just to have a little bit of some shadow color mixed in with that burnt sienna and raw umber for the bottle. Now, again, I rinse off my brush, dry off some of the water, and again, I go back in with that burnt sienna and mix some of that out. And now let's get in to the painting, and I'm noticing that the light is coming from this direction, this way, so the darker is over here. So I'll take some of this cobalt blue with burnt sienna, and I want to make this darker over here. So you can see that's a bit darker than the burnt sienna straight like we have it in the palette. Okay, so no worries. I'm making it a little darker on this side over here. And again, my hand is resting on the paper like this, right down on the board. I have a masonite board underneath my paper here, and the board is really large, so I always have room to rest my hand anywhere I want to go. And then there we go. We have that there, and maybe this like so. So I'm taking my time, but you'll always be very happy if you can get your pencil drawing in, because then you know where you're going to have to paint. All right, so now I'm going to put the red burnt sienna, which is like a reddish brown, over the top of that darker wash that we made with the cobalt blue. But I just wanted to get that darker bit of underpainting done first, and then we can go like this, and I'll leave a highlight there and a highlight there. Okay, now maybe I said to myself, Chris, maybe should have left more highlights on this. So I take my paper towel and I bunch it up like this, and then I can just lift up paint like that. And then I take it again and fold it up so that there's no paint on it. So you see how there's no paint on that? I don't want to touch down onto this and press down on this when there's paint on here, so I make sure it's clean. If you have to just use a fresh piece, use a fresh piece of paper towel or tissue. And then I do again like that. Now when you lift up like that, that immediately gives you a beautiful sense of light on the side of this bottle. And that's all you have to worry about, is you want to have that sense of light shining with the like this across the painting. Like that. And that looks good. Maybe I can even take this and lighten it up a little bit and maybe blot up a little bit. I think I can do it. Let's try it. Yep, works good. See? A little bit of that blotting technique really can go a long way. And again, a little bit of French ultramarine blue. Maybe over here. Like that. And I blot up again if I have an issue or something is... Sometimes if your paints are getting out of control a little bit, you can always blot up quick. And then I also want to add some cerulean blue. Here, I'll put it down here. I'll introduce some cerulean blue. Also some, let's try some green, a Viridian green. Cerulean blue, Viridian green. And I'm going to try to get a little bit of that for a shadow over here on the white. Okay, so I'm just making some shadow on that white label. And then again, if you need to, take your tissue or paper towel, fold it up into a sharp kind of like fold like this. And if washes are getting out of control, just lift them up like this. And then do it again over here. So that can really be a lifesaver if you can do that. Blot up here and there to kind of keep things under control if you find that some things are getting a little bit some of the washes sometimes get a little bit out of control. That's what watercolor is. It's a little bit interesting that way. It definitely sometimes will get out of hand on you, and that's how you just have to learn how to handle it. And that's really a big part of watercolor, is kind of working with the medium and the water and the washes, and eventually you get so used to it that you just automatically are quick at reacting to it and fixing it up or doing the next wash or the next brush stroke. But in the beginning you're going to struggle. Don't worry about it. That's the thing of watercolor. Once you struggle for about a year or so, then you eventually start to make a lot of progress because you get used to it. But it's just like a matter of getting used to it, really, is what it is. And if you work, the more you practice at it, the quicker you'll get used to it and figure it all out. But that's the thing about watercolor. It does take time. There's no easy way to just learn it quickly. It does take time. It took me, a couple of years, 2-3 years to kind of get the feel for it. So, I mean, some of you are going to get it faster than that. Okay, so now I'm going to get our red stripe in here. And I'm just going to take straight damp brush. I dried my brush off, actually, on the tissue first after I rinsed it. And now I'm just going to go right over the whole thing here with my red stripe. And then we'll use white paint, actually, to make the lettering of the red stripe beer over the top of that, if that makes sense. It'll be easier to do that way. Okay, and then a little more, again, blue. And again, if anything starts to flow too much. And also, too, some colors in your palette will flow out into other washes faster than others. So like the cadmium colors, cadmium red, cadmium lemon yellow, cadmium yellow, those three colors especially, they will flow out into your other washes really fast. They just have a chemical reaction when they are on the paper that they actually will really move quickly and start to flow fast. So you'll make a note of that. And again, I'm going to lift that up a little bit. And then straight into the straight paint. All right, so I've worked on this beer bottle quite a bit, and now it's time to take a quick break. And then once we're done taking our break, we will work on the carnation. Let's take a little bit of background color and just maybe blend it in over here. So I'll take a little bit of the Viridian Green and Cerulean Blue and just kind of maybe do a little wash that just kind of fades out over here like that. And then maybe even add a little bit of the burnt sienna to that, like that. And a couple splashes too. So if we do this, just a quick little bit of wash. Blend it into the side of the bottle over here. That will help the everything to blend together, and we can even add a little bit of shadow over here too. So I'll add a little bit of shadow over here. And I'll make it a little darker with some cobalt blue. Burnt sienna, cobalt blue, like this. A couple of splashes, a little bit of the green. And the reason I'm doing this is to try to blend the bottle and get some soft edges with the bottle into the background so that the bottle just doesn't look like it's cut and pasted out and put onto the paper. Like, you know, if I had cut it out and then stuck it on the paper, I want those to sort of blend in. So you can just see how I'm trying to blend the bottle into the background a little bit. And if I can do that, it will look a little bit better. So let's say the background is a little bit darker. So we're having I'm scrubbing some of the paper. And I'm just trying to make the background darker in this particular painting right now, this composition, so that the bottle just, again, doesn't look cut out and pasted too much. And then I can just add a little bit of colors here and there. A little bit of cerulean, a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of so that's French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And a little bit of splashing just to blend it back in here, and again give some really nice textured feel to it. A couple of splashes in the foreground here. All right, let's come back, take a break, and we'll come back and finish up our carnation at the bottom of this painting, and I think we'll be all set. All right, so we're getting back started again. We're working on our red stripe beer bottle and a white carnation. So we noticed that when we were creating our beer bottle, we definitely we talked about blending it into the background, so we were trying to make our background a little bit darker than, let's say, we did for our first few compositions where we left the background quite light. So that, given as it is, we noticed that it's taken some time to dry, so let's let all the background and the beer bottle blending into the background, let's let that all dry and let's forget about it for now, because sometimes if we just keep working on it, it could get worse and make things not look as good. So once you kind of see things are a little bit starting to get a little bit, maybe not exactly the way you want it to look for the finished painting, just let it go and let it dry a little bit. We'll do some fix-ups here, and we'll show you actually how to do some really good fix-ups with some Chinese white or some titanium white on our beer bottle label and a few highlights and things, so don't worry about it. Let's go right into the green here, sap green, and a little bit of raw umber. Sap green, raw umber, a little bit of cobalt blue. So let's make a kind of a mix of those three. Let me change my water out in my bucket. So again, I'm going to put some fresh, clean water in my bucket, water pail, water container, just so I have a little bit of extra clean water in there. And then now we have raw umber, sap green, and a little bit of cobalt blue. So now we have a nice mixture of three beautiful colors that we're going to start creating our stem for our white carnation, and that's all. And I'm going to work at a rapid pace here. I don't want to spend 4 hours on this one small composition. And you're the artist. You'll figure out that these compositions are more fun. We're learning some new things, but we're not going to be trying to suffer over all the details of it. We're just going to try to get it in, get it done, and we're going to move on to the next one. And let's see here. Let's do some cerulean blue. That looks good. And some raw umber. So cerulean blue and raw umber for some of the shadows in the carnation I think are going to look just fine. So underneath this side over here, we're going to have some of the shadow colors of the carnation. And there will be some shadowing too. So I'll take some raw umber and French ultramarine blue for a bit of a grayish shadow, just here and there. Okay, and then back into the green and the blue and the raw umber. And I'll just try to get in a few. Warm and cool. So green, so the blue and green, so raw umber is sort of warm. And then the cerulean blue is kind of cool. So cerulean blue and raw umber is our warm and cool for our colors for our carnation. And we'll just try to remember to kind of work with both of the warm and the cool colors of our carnation. And maybe just get a couple of styrations of the natural styrations in the carnation. And then maybe we can have a couple of... But I would leave that loose like that. I wouldn't go too much more. We could put a bit of some wash on the tablecloth so that the tablecloth is a bit of a warm and cool, which is raw umber and cerulean blue. And this way maybe we have, now we can have our carnation, white carnation, kind of stand out a little bit more. I'm using a smaller brush here. I'm using the number 5 Da Vinci travel brush. And That is a good brush, same as the number 8, just smaller. And this is also a much more inexpensive one, and it works fantastic. Number 5 Da Vinci, Series 1573. So it's a Series 1573 Da Vinci number 5 travel brush. And what's great about this one is it works the same. You take it apart. You could stow it in your pocket, your purse, your backpack, your duffel bag. Take it out again when you need to work with it. Throw it in there when you're done. It dries out because there's a little hole in the top. But this one is a synthetic brush, and the synthetic is great too. It works just fantastic. It's actually, if you're new to watercolor or maybe just painting a couple years or so, synthetic is fine. You don't need to really use the fancy sable brushes unless you want to. But usually synthetic brushes are great because they hold less water, so it'll automatically help you to have less puddles of water and things kind of in your paintings if you want to keep your paintings a little more less watery looking, or if you have an issue where sometimes you feel your paintings might have too much water or sort of a look where the paint isn't as vibrant and exciting. These brushes will help a lot, the synthetic brushes. So we are now fine. We have, I might put a shadow here for the bottle. This. I won't make the shadow too dramatic. Raw umber and just a little bit of a shadow. And raw umber, French ultramarine blue, and I go a little bit darker with the shadow over here. Maybe even a little bit of that red, burnt sienna in there. That looks fine. Now we talked about, we're going to take some titanium white to fix up a few spots. I empty out my water container, put fresh clean water in so that we don't have any muddy water as we're going to try to work on some of the titanium white fix-ups. So we'll take a little bit of raw sienna or yellow ochre, and we put it in the top and stir it around, just a little bit of that yellow ochre in the top of this tube of titanium white. So you just add a little bit of yellow ochre to that color so that it doesn't look as stark white. And then now we can just do a quick couple of fix-ups to the label. So now you can see how we recaptured our beautiful white label, like that. And then over here we could gain a little bit of benefit putting some of that white paint there. That's it. We rinse off our white paint off our brush. Now we have our brush washed off clean. We take our paper towel or tissue, dry off the brush completely. Then we go back into the white paint, and let's see if we can get some writing on our. So now we're just going to do a quick little bit of, okay, just like that. I wouldn't get too detailed. I would just sort of kind of write in the script on there. But I wouldn't go too fancy. I'd let it just be almost like you can't read it. That's probably better off just leaving it like that. And that's fine. And then over here on the bottom, there's some darker writing, and there's also a gold. So we'll make the gold by taking yellow ochre, a little bit of yellow ochre, and let's make this gold. So I'll just put a little bit of that gold insignia up there. I also notice we need to maybe cover over that splash there because it probably looks better without the splash there. And then what else can we do? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break now, but you could use a small pen maybe. Let's try that. See how that works. We'll take a small Sharpie marker and see if we can get a little bit of some writing on this over here. Okay, so I did a little bit of writing with the Sharpie marker. No one's ever going to notice. I just did a little bit of penmanship there, and then a little bit of Jamaica, like that, with some red. So again, I just used a little bit of red and black Sharpie marker over here on the bottom right hand for the beer. And that's it. I wouldn't, get too crazy with it and go too fancy and try to make it like you have to be able to read it. It's so small here in the painting, you don't even need to read it at all. If you just kind of like scribble in a few marks, it'll be good enough, and it'll look fine. And maybe we could add a little more white to the label over here. So I'm just going to be fixing up the label a little bit with a little more white paint. Like that. Okay, and there's a little bit of a highlight over here. So you can take a little dab of white for a highlight, like that, and maybe another one there. This one's a little bigger, like that. Maybe another one down here, like that. Maybe one up here. And that is fine. All right, so now let's get ready to move on to our next composition over here. We're going to pick some more stuff from our stockpile of compositional subject matter. We have fruits, vegetables, we have cups, mugs, saucers, we have bottles, and we have, what else do we have over there? We have some more flowers. We have a shorebird. We have a lot of interesting things. So we're going to keep working on just doing a few things as we go to get prepped for doing a full, beautiful still life painting in the near future. So if you keep in contact with us and you subscribe below on the right-hand side, feel free to do that. This way you keep track of what we're doing here. You kind of like join along with us every week. We're working here every week on this channel. Everything is watercolor, and we're going to just keep pressing forward here, practicing up on our compositional projects here. And all right, let's get started on this next one. All right, so we just picked out a few more things from our stockpile. Again, these are styrofoam, fruits and vegetables, things that I've picked up on the online on eBay. Used styrofoam fruit, used plastic fruit. Over the years, I've collected some, so I have a number of boxes of different assorted styrofoam fruits and vegetables and so forth. So this one here has a little bit of paint missing on it, but that's no big deal. So we're going to do three items here. We're going to do an orange, a tangerine, and a red chili pepper. So I'll set these up across from me, in front of me on my table, and what we'll do is we'll just have a fun time creating those three bits of subject matter here. Okay, so I'll use my mechanical pencil again over here, and we'll start out, and we'll maybe make the tangerine over here. So I'm just going to carefully make my tangerine here, and I'm just carefully looking at the tangerine. And then over here is the orange back behind it, quite a bit larger, the orange. and the orange is more around, like this. And then I'm just going to carefully contour draw, which basically means I'm not really like sort of sketching it like this. I'm sort of just trying to look at it and go a little bit at a time as I go and try to get everything in just one line. And then I want to try to create my shadow over here like so, and there's another shadow over here for my tangerine like that, and then my pepper is over here, and my pepper is like so, like that, and it looks good. And we have the stem on the pepper. Okay, look how good that looks. All right, so we have it. We could take our table, back of our table. Again, you can always use a ruler if you want to. So you could say to yourself, make a point and say, all right, I want the back of the table. We've kind of been creating the back of our table here as we go. So we're going to do the same thing here. Create a table in the back of the edge of the table, and we just say, okay, we want it about there. So then we say, well, we can measure down and say, well, how much is it down from the top of this line here? Ah, no problem, 2.5 inches. Then I just come over here and say 2.5 inches. So I make a hash mark there, and I have it over here. And I just go right across like this. And then we have it, just like that. Okay, so now we have everything pretty much drawn in. And then we're just going to, again, do the same thing. We want to be mindful. Let's not keep mixing the paints on our palette over and over again and get muddy looking colors. We want to keep our colors like fresh looking, clean, rich looking, vibrant. We want the pigment to be really exciting. So the way we do that is we just make sure we take some paper towel, and it's not like you have to be perfect and get every drop of paint up, but just do a quick, just like that. That's plenty good enough. And then we can start in with our paint. And I'll use again the number 8 for our paint. And I'll empty my water bucket again. This has white paint in it from the titanium white we used. Remember, we used that to kind of use some white paint over here. It kind of makes the paint or the water look really chalky looking. So that's why we want to empty that out now. That's why that's a great reason to just always empty your water bucket often, because that'll really keep your paint looking fantastic on your paper, your paintings. So, all right, we took some of that, emptied it out, fresh clean water in our water bucket. Let's go in. We're doing orange and tangerine. I noticed that the orange is more of a cadmium orange like this, and I could even look at the orange and bring it over here and just say, yeah, that's about the same, like that. Then I might say, okay, well, how about this? Well, that's a little darker. Well, we could take a little bit of the cadmium red over here, see if we can, yeah, that's better. So we make this one a little bit more red toward the red side, or more red orange versus an orange. So that's a red orange, right, like that. So I'll put that back up there on the table. So now we have our both colors mixed and ready to go. And then we know our red pepper is pretty much straight red with a little bit of green, but let's get these first few. And it's simple enough. Again, let's make sure we know our light source. So we're going to say that our light source is coming from here. So we make a spotlight insignia, which is basically a triangle with some light going like this. And then we just know that we're going to want to put a highlight over here on our orange like that. Leave a bit of white paper on there. We can kind of blend in the two together there. Okay, so now we get our orange completed. Now we're going to do our tangerine. I'll leave another white spot there too, highlight. Okay, I'm working quick now. As quick as I can kind of work here. So then we rinse off the brush, dry off some of the water. Now I want to go a little darker, like this, and then maybe add a little bit of some cobalt blue, just to darken it up a little bit and get a little bit of a darker shadow side over on this side there, like that. Much better. And then the same thing over here. A little bit of maybe we'll use some cerulean blue over here with this. And we'll do that, just to give this a little darker side over here, like that. Rinse off the brush, dry off the water, and then blend that in with just a damp brush so we don't have too much disruption on that. And then we go in with some raw umber, cerulean blue, and raw umber. And we right away get some shadow in there, like this. Okay. All right, so you see how we're working these two together. They're both close in color, so that's why we're working these together. And now our chili pepper is really kind of very vibrant, just straight, no water, just straight paint, straight cadmium red, like that. Maybe a little bit of shadowing in there. I start to see a little bit of a shadow color there, maybe some cobalt blue and some green, maybe some sap green in there too. Sap green and cobalt blue. A little bit of a shadowy bit of color there. Then more red. And some green. Rinse off my brush, dry off some of the water. Get a little bit of that green in there. There's some green. Okay, and then sap green. Mixed in with a little bit of that raw umber and French ultramarine blue. And we're going to make our stem. There we go. And then if we want to add some shadow, I would let that dry first before putting any shadow underneath the pepper. So let's let that dry, the pepper dry. While we're letting the pepper dry, let's start getting some color up here, maybe just a little bit of background color, cerulean blue and green, like this. So I'm just trying to make a little bit of a definite line to show the back of the table, like that. Then I take my brush and I mix in some orange so that it blends with the orange too, and the red. So if you use all three colors, orange and red and blue, like we've been using back here, and you just sort of swirl it up to give it a little bit of a background, that's going to look fine. Then I would take a little bit of that blue, a couple of splashes, texture, texture, texture. A little bit of texture there, some splashing, a little bit of orange. Always remember, you can lift up some of the and if I added some French ultramarine blue here, like over here and here, I'll add some there too. Some over here on the pepper. a little bit there. So I just like to make sure I mix that color around. I don't want to put it over here and then not put it in the painting other areas. So always try to keep with the philosophy of, this is just, you know, does this make sense? If we know that colors harmonize together really well in our paintings, then it makes sense that we wouldn't want to add a color into our painting in just one spot and then not put it anywhere else. So we always think of ourselves as we're trying to keep in mind that if you add some color somewhere in your painting that you haven't added anywhere else, toward, let's say, the middle portions of your painting as you're working on a composition or a painting, we just hope this makes sense to you. If you add a color, like as you're working through your painting and maybe halfway through or toward the finishing of your painting, you wanted to add another color into your color scheme in your painting or your composition, all you have to always remember is a very simple rule of thumb. You just take that same color and you add it in a few other different places around the painting and it'll look fine. But if you were just to put it in one spot like here and not anywhere else, it would look out of place and kind of would look unpleasant looking in your painting. So that's just like a real basic rule of when you're painting, that you're going to want to always have that rule in mind. Just a great thing to keep in mind. So that's a shadow there. If the shadow doesn't come out great, you can lift it up and then maybe something looks a little bit like this. Or it looks like this and comes over here like that. That might look a little better. This over here. So you can adjust your shadows as you're finishing up. But I think that's fine. Okay, so this is another completed composition. Tangerine, orange, and a red chili pepper, a small red chili pepper. And I just want to make sure I get some more of that green in there. All right, so let's take another quick break and we'll get started on our next composition. All right, we're going to move on now, and let's do a pear. So we'll take this, and we'll set it across from us, and we look at this, and we can kind of notice that it's just by holding it up to the palette a little bit and looking at it, it's matching up with like the yellow ochre, raw sienna, raw umber colors. Maybe a little bit of some yellow, some cadmium yellow as well. And so we kind of know already what colors we're going to need for that. So we'll set that up across from us and we'll begin. So the first thing I'll do is I'll use my mechanical pencil and I'll start at the lower portion of the painting. I tend to like to paint things like if we're doing compositions like this, I like to tend to paint the subject matter lower toward the bottom of the painting sections, the compositional sections here, just because I don't want things high up. A lot of times if we draw something high up in this square or rectangle, if we draw things and paint things high up, it tends to look like it's floating or floating up out of the picture space. So that's why I tend to have things lower, like it feels like they're sitting, resting down on the bottom of the painting. So you'll notice that my subject matter is more toward the bottom, again, so that it feels like it's resting on the bottom of the painting, sitting on the tablecloth, versus floating up. So sometimes if we just draw something and paint it and we don't have a table or a back of a table or something like that's going to give us the visual cue that there's a table that it's resting upon, it can kind of feel like it's floating off into space. So that's why I definitely will tend to always have a like a line across that denotes the back of the table. Let's say a kitchen table, a countertop, something like that. So let's start out. We'll just do this quick pear. So I'm just going to go and contour draw it. I'm just noticing the shape of it. And it goes up like this, and then I see the stem here. And then there's a little bit of a top to it like that. And it comes down like this, and then it goes out like this. And it comes back like this. All right, that looks pretty good. And then we'll put a shadow here. Sort of like a shadow like this. And I'll do a little erasing here, just to sort of shadows like this. And the light's coming from kind of the top. So I'll put a light insignia up here as if the light's coming from the top down, like so. And then I'll put the back of the table. I'll put it back here just to kind of line it up with this one. Visually it looks kind of good as we're going across here. And then you can just line up your, that back line here. The back of the table, you can just line it up like that, and it, like that. Okay, fantastic. All right, so now we have our drawing completed and of our pear, and then we said we're looking at the colors of raw sienna and yellow ochre and raw sienna, maybe a little bit of we could use some of this that we have left over for the red and orange, cadmium red and cadmium orange. Okay, so I'm just trying to get some of the colors out on the palette now. I think that's pretty good. And then maybe a little bit of burnt sienna for some of the darker, and then a little bit of, let's say, cobalt blue. Cobalt blue could be some of the shadow colors, the darker darks, with maybe a little bit of burnt sienna in there too. Like that. That looks pretty good. So the first thing I do is I'm going to again use my larger brush, the number 8. And I'll go in and I'll start just picking up these colors, and I just rest my hand on the paper, set my brush down onto the paper itself, and then just carefully keep an eye on where those brush hairs are. So I just want to make sure I'm sticking with where my pencil line is, and you can paint down into the shadow like that. Then we can go back in, get some of that darker bit, and then just add that right in quickly. We don't have a lot of time at this point. I'd like to make that kind of note to self. Let's remember that when you have a wash down quickly on your paper like this, you have to, if you want to add a darker wash like I'm doing right now, you have to go in really quick and do it. You can't wait like 5 minutes or so. That'll really cause a problem, because then the wash will start to really get awkward looking, and you'll start to get weird looking, odd looking marks on the watercolor wash itself. So as we do that, we kind of look pretty good. A little bit of the green, splash a little bit of green on there. We have some spots and speckles, maybe a little bit of cerulean blue and burnt sienna for some shadow under here, to make it a little bit darker under here. That's the shadow underneath the, like that. And then there's some speckles on it, so I'll just tap some speckles of color, some splashes of color on the pear. Up top, the pear has some lighter highlights up there. There might be a little bit of yellow as well. Some cadmium yellow. I want to add a little cadmium yellow. That looks good. And then let's do the stem. Maybe I'll shift over to a smaller brush, the number 5. And then now this one's the Da Vinci Travel Brush number 5, which is synthetic again, and it's very inexpensive. I think I have this one in the comment section down below. Again, it's a link to Amazon. All my art supplies, incidentally, are all linked below, most of them anyway, so probably 75% of everything you're seeing here on my videos, it's all linked below, links to Amazon, so you can go check it out on Amazon. You can also search on other things on Amazon too, like comparable products. Amazon usually gives you comparable products that are similar to something you might be looking at, so maybe it's a little more higher quality or maybe a little more economical priced, whatever it is your budget is. You know, you can find things on Amazon though very easily. I think nowadays I'm really, you know, can purchase all of my art supplies and art products and supplies, 90% of them on Amazon, because it's just so convenient. I order it and it comes in a couple days to my house, my studio, and there's no problem. I'm back working again. So I don't have to worry about wasting time traveling around searching for things. They just show up at the house, at the studio. So I'm glad about that. Okay, so that's a little bit of a shadow there from the stem. That's our stem. Our pear, the only thing left we have to do now is, again, go back to our number 8 brush, and we'll just make a little bit of a bit of some color on the background where the back edge of the table meets the background. And I'll just add some similar colors, the same colors we've used in the pear, we're going to use for our background colors here. So we're not going to do any awkward looking colors that are not what we've already used before. That's the key. If we can do that, we are 100% ahead of the game. And a couple splashes, a couple of swirls maybe, just to, like that. A couple of splashes over here, like that. Maybe a little bit of a darker tone under there. But that's it. We're all set on this one. A pear, again, we're having a fun time here. We're just moving right along with our compositions, and we're going to start another one in just a second, but I'm going to take a quick break. I hope you don't mind. I just want to, I'd like to just stretch my legs a little bit, actually sit down. I stand up when I'm painting on YouTube here, so I like to sit down for about 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, so I will be right back. All right, let's move on to our last composition right here now for this page, this sheet of paper here. We'll do a small flower and a green apple, and we'll see how it turns out. I'll just set these across from me, and we'll get our pencil ready to go. And so I'll start out like this, and maybe I'll start down here. Okay. And I'm just contour drawing the flower petals here. And there's a leaf form here. That's the green apple there. That's the center of the petals. And there's another bit of a flower shape here. Like that. Okay, so this is like so. And then the apple is tipped forward like this. Like that. Then I have the shadowing under here. So I'm just trying to get my shadowing in a little bit here and there. But that looks pretty good for the pencil drawing. And then if I just go across there, I'll just put that little hash mark of pencil there. And then I'll say that the light is coming from up here. I'll put my light insignia up here, like that. And then the next thing I'll do is just get some spritzer bottle water. And again, we'll do the same thing. We'll just try to clean up our palette a little bit. I spritz some water on there, and then I get a paper towel. And again, no need to get too anxious or fussy about this. Just a little bit of cleanup here is fine. And then maybe a little more water spritzed on top of the paint. And we can start painting, and I'm going to use my larger brush, the number 8. Let me see if so I'll use my number 8 Da Vinci. That should be fine. The size of the brush seems to match the size of the composition. And I'll empty my water and get fresh, clean water. And that took me a second. I just had to run across the other side of the studio to get some fresh, clean water. Okay. And then our green apple is going to be yellow, cadmium lemon yellow. And maybe a touch of the sap green. A little bit of raw umber for a little bit of a warmer color, but I think this should be fine. Okay, so I'm going to, let's move through this kind of quickly. I'll leave some white paper on the top of the apple. I'll paint right down into the shadow with this green, knowing that the shadow is going to be darker. And this is going to be darker there too. Okay, and then I will pick up some of the raw umber and also some blue. And then we'll place that there for the shadowing. There's even a little bit of orange, I see. in the this apple. And I rinse off my brush, tissue, dry off some of the water. Then I want to start getting in some of the more of the shadow color. So I'll use cobalt blue with some of the raw umber, a little bit of cerulean blue. And I'll just try to get that shadow in like so. I'll peel off this tape. Shadow. And there's a little bit of shadowing here. Rinse off the brush, dry off the water off the brush, so it's just a damp brush. And we smooth out that shadowing area in the divot in the where the apple, the core of the apple is. Okay, and then we're going to get some more green. Raw umber, green, a little bit of cobalt blue. And we're just going to put the leaf forms here. So I'm carefully painting around the flower petals with these dark green shapes of these leaf forms, and we could call that negative shape painting. We're painting around the petals of the flower with a darker color, and then the petals appear actually. And this is looking pretty good. We'll get a little bit of our alizarin crimson and rose madder. We want a light wash of that. So I'll place the paint in the areas that I see it a little bit, let's say, darker in tonal value, where I'm seeing a little bit of a darker bit of the red, which is the alizarin crimson and the rose madder. Like this. Then I rinse off the brush, dry off the water off the brush, and then I use a dry brush basically with just a little bit of moisture in it, in the brush hairs, like a damp brush basically, and I just smooth out those washes, trying to leave the darker pink outer edges of the flower petals and leave it lighter in the center. And then there's a little bit of a darker, I'll make a little bit of the raw umber mixed with the, maybe a little bit of green, like this. And I'll dry off a little bit off the brush. And I'll just see if I can make some of these small center of the flower. There's small shapes like that. And that looks pretty good. And then maybe I'll take a quick paper towel just to clean up a section of my palette. It doesn't have to be the whole palette, just quickly get a bit of clean palette area, and I'll put some cerulean blue. I'll do a couple splashes like that here and there. very minimal. And then I'll just add some color to the table edge here with some green and blue. So I'm just repeating the colors. And I just do a little bit of and that is pretty good. And then the next thing I would do is I would move to my smaller brush again, and I'd get straight paint, raw umber, straight paint, no water, a little bit of French ultramarine blue with some burnt raw umber, a little bit of green just to have some repeating colors in there, and then a little bit of the alizarin crimson. And then I'll just make this stem here. And there's a little bit of a shadow, cerulean blue. And it's a little bit light, the shadow. You can always lift up a little bit of the shadow like that. And you can lift it up and kind of do it even lighter if you want to, just to give a hint of it like that. And a little bit of shadowing over here. And that is our green apple with our small flower. And we're going to move on to our next composition. We'll start a new sheet of paper. And I hope you're enjoying this so far. And let's kind of just keep focused on the main theme of this tutorial, which is we're trying to paint smaller parts of a larger whole of a painting. So we're going to do a still life painting eventually. Maybe in a few weeks or so we'll put it together, and then we'll have all of these practiced first. So we'll practice up on these compositions first with our fruit, our vegetables, our other components that we have, a beer bottle, and we're going to have a coffee mug, maybe a cappuccino cup. We're going to have maybe a pair of scissors, maybe a duck decoy. Maybe we're going to have a shorebird coming up just in a few minutes or so. Maybe that'll be our next painting once we start our new sheet of paper. We'll do a beautiful shorebird, and we'll just keep working on, again, the smaller parts to the larger whole. Okay, so be right back in a few minutes. We'll get started with another sheet of paper, and we'll section off everything the same way, and maybe we'll cover how we're sectioning off our paper here, just so we have an idea of it. All right, so we're just I cleaned up the palette a little bit while we were away for a few minutes or so. I'll peel back this tape a little bit. We'll get our next sheet of paper started. And basically I just have them This is a quarter of a full sheet of Fabriano Artistico extra white paper. I have another sheet ready to go, and what I do is I just make one just like this, pre-made, and then I just put each so I mark one sheet with the grid lines here in these 6 spaces, and then I just put the next piece of paper over it, and then if I hold it up to any kind of a light source, I just make little hash marks in these areas right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then I just take a ruler and draw the lines across like this, and I just keep going until I've marked out all 4 sheets of paper. You can even make a lot more ahead of time if you wanted to. And then I'll just roll this tape back over the top. It's always good to make sure we have our paper secured down. Does that make sense? With watercolors, if you're working on your page and it's not taped down in some way or secured down, it can slide when you're working on it and throw a brush stroke off and really cause havoc. So I always work with my watercolors with some sort of tape down. Sometimes I'll tape the whole border of the painting, but it's always good to have it taped down at least maybe in 3 or 4 corners. So we have this here set up, the paint, and we'll move on to our next item, our still life item. Let's try a Shorebird. So what I'll do is I'll take the Shorebird and I'll just set it across, and this is something I purchased online on eBay. I typed in Shorebird wood carved Shorebirds, and sure enough I found quite a few, and I picked out one that I thought looked really good, and I'll just set this up across from me here in front of me. And I'll use my mechanical pencil here. And again, I'll put a hypothetical edge of a tabletop in the background here. So I'll just take my ruler and maybe I'll go with 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, and then I'll make the line across for the back edge of the table, like that. And then I'll put the pedestal maybe here. Okay, so this will be the pedestal for our Shorebird, and I'll just contour draw it. I'm just taking my time looking at it. I see some striations in the wood base of it, so I'll put a couple of those in. And then here at the center, I see that we have the wood dowel. Now at this point, you could use a ruler to get a straight edge for your wood dowel. And I just look at the wood dowel and say, how big is it? It's not extremely long. It's maybe about 1.5 times the height of this, if I'm looking across from me. So I look across at the Shorebird with the pedestal, and I just noticed that the wood dowel is about a little bit larger than this height of this bottom of the wood pedestal. So I just take a note of that, and then I say how much, and I say it's almost twice the height of this pedestal. So I'm safe to say I can go at least 1 inch should be fine. This is 1/2 inch right now, from here to here, the bottom of the wood pedestal. So I can go, if this is 1/2 inch, then I can go 1 inch above that center point of where the dowel starts. And if I go 1 inch there, that should be fine. And then I can even take the ruler and make maybe one side of the dowel like that. Once I have that one side of that, then I can just kind of make the other side alongside like that. And then I look at the Shorebird, and I kind of can see it's sort of like 2 shapes. It's kind of like an eye, for the body, and then like a sphere for the head. So if I kind of just maybe pretend I'm making like an eye here, like this, an eye maybe, with some eyeliner on it or something. like that. Or it could be a comet. And then I take the head and I say, well, there's a sphere on top of this. So if I just look at the bird and I say, all right, where's that sphere? It kind of sits right up here. You can kind of lightly do it first and see if you like the way it looks. And you say, yeah, that's about where the shorebird's head looks fine. And then I'll just make the circle there, like so, the sphere. And then the beak is about, if this was a watch dial, this would be about 8 o'clock. So if we say this is 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 8 p.m. maybe a little bit higher than 8 p.m. would be the beak. So we'll make the beak like that. And then the eye is a little bit above the height of the beak. So if I make a little line lightly across where the top of the beak is, and I say, well, the eye is a little bit higher than the beak, so I want to make sure the eye is a little bit higher, and the eye is a little bit forward. If you're looking at the sphere as just a round sphere, the eye is actually above the line of the top of the beak, and it's a little bit forward this way, to the left of this sphere. It's not in the center, it's a little forward of that. So we just look at it and say, okay, there's about halfway, it's about a quarter of the way. And then you can do a little more shaping if you want to get it a little more. But I think that's fine. And then we have the wing over here. Let's make the wing. And that goes back and ties in with the tail feathers. And then we have a little bit of a shadow here. And over here as well. So we're just making a little note of some shadows here. And then I'll go over the basic shape again of the shorebird a little bit darker so you can kind of see it on camera here a little better on the video. And again, I'm just going around the contour, drawing what we had. And then there's a little bit of a white section underneath here, like that. And that's fine. Let's start painting it. And again, I'll use my large number 8 travel brush, Da Vinci natural hairbrush, Kolinsky hairs. And I'll empty my water bucket and start out with some fresh water. Okay, now we have a damp brush, so we check off some of the water. You could also leave a sponge again by your water container and just take your brush and rinse your brush off and then just tap it on the sponge a little bit. And then, or on a tissue or paper towel. And then we have a damp brush, and then we're going to go with some raw umber for the body of and burnt umber. So raw umber, burnt umber, I'm looking at the colors, maybe a little bit of red in there, some alizarin crimson, a little bit of cerulean blue as well. We kind of always want to have warm and cool colors within our choice of colors. And then we'll just go in here and we'll start. I'll leave the eye of the bird white paper for right now. Okay, so I'll just kind of place the paint. So my hand's resting on the paper at all times, like here, my hand's resting on the paper. It gives me a lot of stability. And I can just take the brush and just place the paint wherever I need it to go. And I just carefully watch as I'm going here. And then there's some and there's even a little darker of a burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. On the tail feathers there's a little bit of a darker bit there. And then the beak too is dark, so let's get the beak in. And there might be a little bit of cadmium yellow over here, so I need to rinse my brush off again. Maybe blot up a little bit of that paint. So that's some cadmium yellow. Maybe I'll add a little cadmium yellow here and there. And that's the cerulean blue for the wing over here. And then we'll leave the belly of the bird, we'll leave that white paper. And then we're going to go with that dark again. Again, I rinse off my brush, dry off the water. I don't want any water in my, I don't want a large amount of water in the brush hairs, almost zero water in the brush hairs of my brush. And then I have straight paint, which is the ultramarine blue and burnt umber. And the reason that's so important is because when we make this pedestal and dowel, we can't have a lot of water on the brush, otherwise that'll be really hard to maintain a good line like we have here. So that's what we just want to remember. If we're painting a sky, a big sky on a big sheet of paper, yes, you can leave lots of water on your brush. But if we're doing fine detail work like this, we don't want to really have too much water in the brush hairs, if that makes sense. And let's do the top of this pedestal. Again, I'm taking my brush, setting it down and placing the paint on the top of the pedestal. Like that. Maybe a little bit of blue mixed in with that brown, burnt umber. Then this here's cerulean blue, and more of this, I think the same color would be fine here. It's a little bit darker, has more, less light. The light is sort of, and again here we're just doing our pedestal. And if something ever looks a little bit off, you can always paint out something, right? So you can actually add some more paint and just go over your brush, over your pencil lines. So I'll make this a little bit wider over there. So you can paint right over your pencil lines. We can also take a little bit of sometimes I'll use a chopstick and just and maybe make a couple of lines like that. Just to give it some of that kind of wood feel, carved wood. And then let's go right in and get some shadowing. Let's use the same colors for our shadows. Warm and cool. Maybe it's warmer out there with some of that yellow we had. Some of that cadmium yellow. We still have some of that. We can add a little bit of cadmium yellow there, here, too. And I think that's good. And then we can come over here, add a little bit of our paint. So we can just pick up some paint. Just to make some notes along the back of the table here. And then we can just do a little bit of swirling if we want, like this. Warm and cool. A little bit of yellow. A little bit of cerulean blue. You can make a bit of a dark. Maybe there's a background color here toward the bottom. So this will help to show off the bottom of the bird's belly, that white belly kind of thing. So we can use some of that color that we've already mixed. And then we can take our brush and just make the bottom of the background darker in this one location. And you can also swirl up some paint. And it can have some mystery to it. It doesn't have to be perfect at all. Like that. I'd be really careful. I'd let this dry 100% if you're going to paint around any kind of fine details like the beak or the stem or the dowel. So if you're going to paint a background color around the dowel and the beak, make sure that the beak and the dowel are both 100% dry before you start painting your background color. And I would also be very careful with how much paint you're putting near the dowel and the beak, because it could actually start to reactivate the paint in those locations. You could also lift up a little bit of the paint once you paint at that location, like that. You could put some vertical lines if you want, just sort of so that the eye of the person viewing the painting feels like there might be some curtains back here, or might be some wallpaper. You know, you can add a little more detail to certain things. But that's just an idea. We're just having some fun here, having some ideas within our painting. And so that maybe on a painting we do in the future, maybe in the near future, we would remember back in this and say, oh yeah, I remember I created like a background, some shapes or some lines in the background to make it look like curtains or wallpaper or paneling or something like that. You might have some things in your home where you can look at things in your home and say, oh, yeah, I have some wallpaper that looks like this, so it works out perfect. So it's just a matter of having some ideas to work with. And that is it. I really feel we've captured the shorebird really nicely. And you can always go into and add a few more. Let's add the eye. The eye seems to be like a reddish brown, so I'm not going to go and make it something too far. I'm going to keep the color similar to what we already used. I don't want to go too drastic with something that's going to look. So I'll do that. I'll also remove that white bit of paper there. Maybe I'll go over that white bit of paper with some raw umber, straight raw umber, no water. And then we could always we could go with some white paint to do a highlight or something on the bird's eye if you wanted to. That's up to you. But I think everything is looking fine. So let's work on our next composition. And when we're finishing up this one here, we'll just make any notes that we need to. Again, we said we could add a little bit of white in the eyes, so we could take our small fine detail brush here, the number 4, I think, or number 5, synthetic travel brush, get a little bit of white paint, and we can always put a little white dot on the eye here. And if it doesn't look good when you add something in, just let it go, let it dry, and then you can always go back later and just lightly moisten a brush, a damp brush, and maybe lift up a a bit of color or whatever. You know, you can always do a little fix-ups if you need to, but I wouldn't do too many fix-ups because that can sometimes really, it can affect things and make things look worse. So I would just leave it like that. Maybe I'll try to make this eye like that, and we'll call that complete. And all right, so I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back, and we'll get started on our next composition. Be back in just a second. All right, so we are going to create a very something simple from the kitchen. A soap container, dishwashing liquid. So I'll just set this up across from me. Again, I have a white background set up in front of me, which is like, if you can imagine, it's just like a sheet of white paper and then another sheet of white paper behind it. So it's like a flat surface with white paper, actually white foam board, and then another piece of white foam board standing up behind it. So basically I just have, you know, a white background, and then I just take this, and what we'll do is we'll stretch the truth a little bit. We'll draw this in a pencil drawing, but then what we'll do is we'll actually pretend we're seeing like dishwashing liquid inside this, and we'll pretend that this is a see-through clear translucent container. So we'll just, you know, change reality around a little bit as we paint, because as an artist, you're going to learn. Sometimes you have to kind of maybe just, you know, come up with some creative things, some creative ideas, make some changes to something you might be seeing out in nature if you're painting outdoors, or even if you're painting indoors and you're working from photographs or your laptop or iPad or phone or some pictures from a watercolor book, whatever it is. You know, you'll always be able to change things around a little bit to suit your own taste. So always remember, you have artist's liberty to change things around to suit your own style, your own taste, how you want things to look. So you're never locked into just any one thing where you feel like you can't change things around a little bit to help your painting look better. Like maybe you're going to look at a scene outdoors and you'll remove things out of the scene. You won't put like maybe a car that's there, or a truck or a bus or something like that. When you're doing a city scene, you're going to maybe leave those out, but you're going to add some figures in there. Maybe there's a quiet day and there's not too many figures in a painting that you might be painting outdoors, or from even a photograph, or like I said, anything from your computer. But just the idea of, you know, rearrange things, change things around if you have to, but try to keep it close to what you're seeing. But if you do add or delete and subtract some little things here and there, like embellish the truth, so to speak, here and there a little bit, you'll find that you can use that for a really good effect. So again, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'll probably just start out making it easy for myself. I'll just take this line here, I'll make sure this is all dry, and it is, and I'll just extend this line over like that, and make a line going across here like that. And then we'll just take our time and I'll just kind of put this in the center. So I'm going to look at this container and then just slowly see that it's sloping upwards like this, and then it angles out like this, and then I find a nice little bit of a line going across like this. Then I might come over here and travel up the same way that I just from this side. I'm going to try to kind of hold that same angle. So I have a slight angle this way. I'm going to try to do a slight angle this way. You can always do it lightly first in pencil. Like do a very light, super light pencil sketch. And then once you have that light pencil sketch, you can adjust things a little bit, erase. You know, you have your eraser, you can erase things a little bit, adjust a line or something like that, and then go over with a darker pencil line. So I'll do that. I kind of feel like I'm on a good course here now. So I'll go over with my darker pencil line. But I feel like I'm already seeing this correctly, and then I'm just going to move that like so. So now I have almost like a, almost looks like a salt, pepper shaker or something. And then we'll taper up this way. And then when we get to the top, we're going to have the cap here. And then I'll try to do the same thing here. And then I see that looks pretty good there, and I'm going to go across for the cap. And then as I do that, I'm going to start to just create a rectangle here. And then another rectangle up here, smaller rectangle up here. And then there's another small little bit up top like that. And that's really kind of the basic outline of it. And then there's a bit of a line on the plastic, like it's a mold or something. When they created the plastic, the mold made some interesting indentations in the plastic, which looks good. I think it's probably for it looks good, and it's also probably just to make for a better grip when the bottle is in use. And then here we have the label that comes down like this, and then the label comes back up like so, and then it actually stops there. Then we have a line going across here for the top portion of the label, and then the rest of the label is kind of the other lighter blue, so it's a dark blue, and we could just kind of look at it here. So that's dark blue, that's the top here, and then this will be all the lighter blue with a little bit of other things on here. We can add in a little bit of writing, a little bit of, we'll put some of this on here, and I think that's good. So I'll leave that up across from me. And then we're going to say the light is coming from here, so I'll just make my light insignia. Let's make our light insignia. Good, good. And then maybe we will put a bit of a I'll put a little bit of the writing there. I think that's all I'll really do. And let's start to paint. So again, I mentioned that I'd like to kind of create, again, I'll just clean up the palette a little bit. I'll leave that yellow there. Then I'll take some lemony yellow here, and we're going to use cerulean blue down here. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to go with my dark. I'll start out with that dark blue up here. And again, I'm just starting out with a damp brush and straight paint. No, not much water at all. Almost zero water, straight paint. We could add a little, maybe with a tissue we could lift up a little bit of paint. Maybe infuse a little bit of different colors in here. Just a slight amount of so within this dark blue area, we did add in a little bit of cadmium lemon yellow and some cerulean blue and green. And then it looks like since we didn't use much water, that paint is drying quickly, and we'll use maybe the finer, smaller brush, the number 5 synthetic travel brush, and we'll start working on the lighter blue, which is really cerulean blue. There's some green in there. Again, you can add some more variety to your colors. Don't feel like you just have to paint what you're seeing. And You can also quickly kind of go around all the letters. So if we quickly go around the letters like this with a little bit of a damp brush and hardly any paint or water on our brush, this way we're almost guaranteeing that we're not going to paint over those letters or have a problem with the paint flowing down into those letters. So it's almost the same idea of just dampening the paper. Sometimes you can just dampen the paper. You can dampen the paper first with just a damp brush, no paint or anything like that, and then start to paint, and then the paint will not infiltrate into those letters. Then I'll take some straight cerulean blue. Then you can take some of that darker blue maybe. Do a little bit of highlighting in here. And you just have some fun with this. And again, we're just pretending we're going to embellish the colors a little bit, make them more to what we want. More variety, I would say, than what the original. So we're looking at the original here. It's basically just like a dark blue, a lighter blue, like a French ultramarine blue up here, a cerulean blue here, and then some more cobalt blue or cerulean blue in this section here in the center, but they don't have a lot of variation of color here. And then of course the lemon is yellow, and we'll paint in that lemon too. That's pretty good. Now we're going to go in and use some of our yellow, and we're just going to do this, and we're going to pretend that the yellow is the actual liquid, the liquid soap, and we're just going to have fun with this. This is the light side of the container. I'll pretend this is where the liquid is. This is the shade side. And then I'm just going to do a couple splashes just to keep myself relaxed here. Blue, I think, is the better cerulean blue here, just to sort of this is the cap. Okay, so I'm trying to get the feel that the upper portion of this container doesn't have any of the yellow liquid in there, so we're pretending that it's see-through and translucent. And again, I'm doing a little bit of lifting. I think that's fine. Then I'll start to make the background here. I'll go with the bigger brush again. Now we're in open territory here. So now we can pick up the pace and we have a little more. So now I'm just going to get in some background color. I'm using the same colors. And we're going to keep this a simple color scheme. Maybe we'll add a touch of purple here for shadowing, and since we're going to use that shadowing, the purple for shadowing, let's just add some here in the other parts of the painting. And that shadowing should have yellow in it too. So I'm just going to take that and bring that shadow like this. couple of splashes. Then we can change to some of the yellow. We could even make this background a little darker here and try to blend in this side of the, like that. And that'll just kind of make the container sort of blend into the painting a little more, so that it doesn't feel like it's cut out and pasted. So kind of the idea is if you can maybe have about a third of your, or about 2/3 if you can, not always possible, but sometimes you want to try to have maybe 2/3 of your subject matter blending in with like a background or another object, and then have the other parts of the object, like, so we're going to try to blend. I've tried to blend this into the background quite a bit on this whole left side over here. On the table I can't really do it there. I don't think it'll work out good if I do it there. It's able to blend in here with the shadow, so that worked out good. So I'm able to blend the bottom of the container into that shadow a little bit, so then it doesn't feel cut out and pasted down here. And it doesn't feel cut out and pasted over here on this side. Over here, we see more of a crisp line. So that's okay, but we also maybe have a little bit of crossover here where we can blend that in a little bit. And I think that's fine. That kind of goes with the idea of trying to blend in your subject matter into other objects or background or foreground features, so that it doesn't just look like this looks a little more cut out and pasted, I will admit that. So I could have made my background a little darker here. But again, we're having fun. We're painting, our objects for our still life, so we're not going to be overly critical. But I just wanted to kind of showcase the idea of trying to soften the edges, kind of like it's lost and found edges, it's called, is the technique and the method of using lost and found edges. So these are lost edges here. They just cross over here and down here and over here. Those are lost edges. And then we have found edges, which are crisp outlines of things. So you want to have like a combination of both of those if you can. And if you can do a little more of the lost edges, it really does help a lot to keep subject matter from looking, again, cut out and pasted. All right, so good work. And we will continue. We'll create another composition in just a second. Let's just take a quick break and then we'll be right back. All right, so we're going to create a cappuccino cup and a apple together. So I'm going to set these up across from me again, and I'll put them right on my table across from me. And I'll probably set them up so that the maybe the apple will be behind the cup like this, set up like this, like that. Okay. And we'll do our pencil drawing first. Maybe we'll make this higher, the background, the back of the table. Maybe I'll try to go like this. And then I'll, again, you can never go wrong with just measuring things to keep them level. So if you want to get an exact level line across your paper, I'll just call this 1, 2 3/4 inches here. 2 3/4 inches over here. Connect up the two hash marks here and here. And that's our back of our table. And then I'll start by drawing my cappuccino cup and saucer. I'm going to start with the top of the cup. Okay, and then I'm gonna contour draw this here. And again, you can do a light sketch first if you want to. That always really is if you're just starting out, or if you're maybe just a year or two into drawing and painting and watercolor, your drawing skills. I've been drawing for, most of my life. I started drawing and sketching when I was very young, but it wasn't like I did a ton of it when I was younger. If you look at some of my sketches and drawings, and I've shown them here on my channel, on my videos, of my earliest, maybe 15 years ago or so, 20 years ago, you can see my sketches, and they're very crude. So I just kept working at it, and as long as you're just practicing maybe 10-15 minutes every day on your sketching and drawing, you'll really make tons of progress. So I'm just gonna and then I'll just impose the just a lighter sketch where the top of the cappuccino cup is there. And then I'm going to look and say that the saucer is about halfway. If I'm looking at this and saying this is like a full distance here to here, halfway is about here, just generally approximately halfway. And that's about where the back of the saucer starts, about halfway over here. And then it comes out like this. And it comes back around, and if I just lightly sketch it like this, that'll tend to, if I do a light sketch like that, then I can get the rest of that line accurate like that. And then this is the bottom of the saucer, and now this is out of, and we'll do this here, and this goes up like this. So we see, and this might be too much. So again, if you are drawing this, you have to adjust sometimes and maybe erase a few lines. So I'm thinking that this starts more over here like this, the bottom of the saucer, like that. Like this. So it's more subtle. And then there's a small indentation here where the cup sits in, like that. And then there's another bit of a indentation there. And I could do the same thing, kind of lightly sketch across here and get that other line, just to give it the shadow. We're going to need to put some shadows in the bottom of this cappuccino cup and saucer. And then I noticed there is a little bit of a shadow here, so I'm going to put a shadow there. Light's coming from here. We'll put our light insignia up here. And then we're going to put the apple right behind here. And the apple is pretty good size here. Like this, and then it has where the core is here, and then like this. And that should be fine. We have our background line here for the back of the table, and we're ready to paint. So I'm just going to take a quick break, and we'll come right back and start putting in some color. Okay, so we're going to continue on here. We'll start painting in our cappuccino cup and red apple. And I think the best thing, let's have some fun and not get too overly, painterly with this one. Let's keep it simple, and we'll grab some cerulean blue, cobalt blue. I'll keep this one looking high key, it won't be too dark. I'll leave the colors kind of a lighter color mix. Maybe some green up here. So green and blue, maybe some cadmium lemon yellow over here with some green, maybe some raw umber over here. So I'm kind of working out my colors for the color scheme for this. So we'll use mostly blue for our shadowing, and maybe a little purple in there too, mixed in with the blue, bluish purple, and then green and raw umber. I have some color mixed out on the palette. You can see it's a little more watery now. So I'm going with more of a puddly kind of paint mixes, a little bit lighter, just to see what different effects you can get. So we can get some more watery looking washes now. We've been kind of painting a little more with less water and more paint and like a drier brush. Now let's see what we can do. Let's try some more of some more water. Okay, and then maybe this is, we'll paint right out to the border of the painting, like that. And then here, there's going to be a shadow here. The light's going to be coming from here. Purplish, bluish green here. And then there's maybe a touch of raw umber in there. So you could start plugging in some color here. Shadow across here. Then I dry off my brush a little bit, damp brush. Okay, now same thing over here, a little bit of shadowing on this side of the handle. Now we'll mix up some red. I'll use alizarin, crimson, and cadmium red. And I'll make the darker, so I'll go straight into the paint. Here's where we might use a little more paint, less water. And again there, you can see how that starts to flow out. So I lift up like that. Kind of keep that from infiltrating into that wash we just put on there. So I placed all of that rich straight paint like this right over to here. And again, if you have any problems with the infiltration of water and paint into the handle, we can fix that up with some white paint later. Then we're going to take the a little bit of the raw umber mix with the red and start to change the color a little bit. And there's a highlight on the I can dry off my brush and take some of that paint off like this for a highlight. That's a technique to just, you know, dampen out, dry out the brush, dampen out the brush, and then just lift up some paint like that, and that gives you like a feeling of highlights. And then we try over here a little bit, some color there. And there's a bit of shadow over here. will add some of that red here and there. Does that make sense to add a little bit of that red kind of around the painting a little bit here? I think that looks really good. Ties everything together. Looks nice. Good. And I can make this a little bit over here. Okay, a little bit of the blue purple. Then again, some green. And again, I will add some more green there. Some purple and blue. And at this point, I'm just adding some background color. Again, you can do some vertical brush strokes just to give it some texture and some lines. You can darken up this line here. Then I'll rinse off my brush. I think I'm going to empty the water and take my brush, dry off some of the water, soften this up a bit over here, rinse off the brush again a little bit. I'll see if I can soften this here a little bit. And I'll just put a little more blue in there. Then we could take our fine point brush like this and then use a little bit of the titanium white with a little bit of yellow ochre or raw sienna in the top of the paint. So as not to have it just be looking like stark white. And then I can just regain a couple areas that I painted over before. I think that's good. Maybe we'll just make the stem quickly. For the stem, it's kind of simple. I just dry off an area on the palette like so. Go with the same colors we were using before. Raw umber, cerulean blue, a little bit of green. What was the darkest color we were using? Purple. And then some more raw umber. A little bit of red, a little bit of cad red maybe. Just I'm trying to get that right kind of a grayish color. That looks good. Dry off my brush, take off quite a bit of that paint right off the brush. I don't want too much paint on the brush here. And then I'll just make the stem of the apple here. And then maybe I soften out a spot there. Okay, so we had a fun time creating this cappuccino cup and apple. And we will continue on with our next composition in just a second or two. We'll take a quick break and be right back. All right, let's keep going here. We have 3 more compositions to do. Let's do a paintbrush, a nice Raphael artist brush. I'll set this down across from me, again on my white foam board. So it'll be a stark, just like the white paper, it's going to look the same. So I'm just going to set this down here across from me. And I'll start over here. I think I'll make it on a slight angle. Maybe we'll have the table top up here. So I'll just make a mark up here. So that's about that far there. That's about there. Okay, that'll be the back of the table there. And then we're going to go with the brush over here. Okay, I'll make the ferrule here, like that. Like that there. And then this is the orange tip for the Raphael brushes. They're very distinguished looking. And then this is the hair of the brush here. And that should be good. Maybe a couple details for the ferrule here, where they crimp on the hairs with the crimping tool. So we can put a little, at least a note on here for the little bit of crimping that goes with the ferrule of the brush. And I think that looks fine. Let's start painting it. And we'll use our smaller brush, the number 5 travel brush by Da Vinci. Synthetic brush hairs, which is great. We don't have to worry about our palette too much right now as far as what's on there, because we're just going to basically use straight paint. I will empty my water bucket. We were mixed quite a bit of colors and washes with this. So now we'll start out with fresh, clean water. So I always start out with some fresh, clean water. We're not going to use a lot of water in this painting. Hardly any, actually. And then we'll just go with our standard process of just dampening the brush with some water. Take off a little bit of the water on a tissue or paper towel or sponge. And this is the paint on a Raphael brush is pretty much like an ivory black gloss kind of look. So we'll go with the ivory black there. And then we'll just, again, rest the brush down and then just go across. Like that. Pick up some more straight paint. Maybe there's a highlight on the brush around the center area of the brush like this. Maybe the light catches the glossy paint. So we'll leave a little bit of that light across the brush there. And this side will be in shadow over here. That. And then we have raw umber for the brush hairs. A little bit of burnt umber maybe. And I'll just take my time and just place the paint. And again, hardly any water, just a damp brush here is all you need. And if you take your time, you can get the paint application on there just right. And then we'll use a touch of cobalt blue for the metal. So then now we can go with a little bit more of a wash with some additional water so we can thin down, but we want to take off most of the water off the brush. We just want the the lighter blue here for the metal on the ferrule of the brush, and there's probably a little bit of a light bouncing off that too. So, and once you have that on there, you can just add in some water. Like that. And then let's do some shadowing. We'll use that blue for shadowing. Maybe a touch of raw umber. So there'll be a slight shadow underneath this brush right here. And then you can add in some other colors if you want. Maybe a little bit of red to make it a purple here and there. Like that. So we make a shadow under there. And again, you can add in some other interesting, infuse some colors into the, if you want. Couple of splashes. You can lift up a few, put a couple splashes on, lift a few off to get the desired result. Then some cadmium orange. That'll be for the tip of the brush. And now we're going to have to be careful. Like, let's wait on the cadmium orange because that shadow color is starting to dry, but it still has a little bit of dampness to it. So instead of trying to put in that orange for the orange tip of the brush, let's let that kind of be for right now. Maybe we'll add a little bit with a larger brush, just a little bit of background up top. Maybe we could use the same colors. And I'll just go right across with a couple of horizontal lines. A little bit of cobalt blue. And I'm just like experimenting right now while I'm doing this. So it's almost like sometimes painting can be fun if you're doing compositions. Does this make sense? You can just start experimenting on things. Like on this background here, I went with the horizontal lines across the horizontal brush strokes. Here we were using vertical. Here we kind of did like a circular swirling fashion. So you can try things out as you're doing your compositions here. You know, it's almost just like a practice session basically. Practicing with different colors, different brush strokes, splashing, light and shadow, lost and found edges, practicing drawing skills. I think we're fine now. We can put our orange, a bit of orange on the tip of our brush here. That looks fine. All right, so that's good. We're going to take another quick break, and we're going to come back and just finish out with a few more. Hope you're going to subscribe if you haven't. Feel free to subscribe. This way you stick with us. We're working on watercolor paintings every weekend. During the week, we have occasional videos coming out, and we're also doing beginner style videos as well as these more advanced style practice and compositional style videos, and we're always doing new paintings. We do every type of subject matter that you can imagine in watercolor. We do flower paintings, we do beach scenes, seascapes, boats, landscapes, barns, trees. We do a little bit of figure painting, portrait painting occasionally. Once in a while, we'll do even on an often basis. We also will create city scenes and still life paintings, like we're doing now, practicing still life items, so that when you go into a still life painting, you'll have approximately, like, maybe a couple dozen different things you practice for still life, like fruits, vegetables, ordinary items you might find around the kitchen or around the house. So we're going to keep working. All right, so we're just going to keep working on here. We're going to just clean up the palette a little bit. We've worked on a couple paintings, so now's the perfect time to spritz the paint a little bit and the palette. And this, again, is the Schmincke palette. I know I did a custom configuration of my paints in this Schmincke palette, but, even the standard Schmincke palette's really nice, and, there's all kinds of palettes you can check out. I do have this one, I think, down below in the comments section. So remember, all my art supplies, my paints, my brushes, papers, water containers, water spritzer bottles, odds and ends like maybe pens, pencils, rulers. I have that all in my comment section below. Links to Amazon. This way you can just go onto Amazon and it's right there, and you can shop there and find the best price and do some price comparisons and things like that. You might find it a little cheaper on Amazon than you would if you were to maybe go out to a store or something like that. But it depends if there's sales and things like that. So you have to just keep mindful of that. But in any case, I just wanted to make sure I'm making it very easy for everybody if they do want to pick up some of the art supplies that I use on a daily basis in my art career here, and especially I'm making videos. I'm going to want to always give you the best information of what I'm doing right here, in the now. So I'm going to just do a quick tidy up here of the palette. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, just as long as we get the majority of the paint that's left on the palette, so that we have a fresh, clean palette to work with. And then the next composition we'll work on is, I think we're going to do we'll have a lot of fun here. We're going to do the duck decoy. Look at that, how beautiful that is. I got this out in Pennsylvania. I'm in New Jersey. That's my hometown where I live, Fair Lawn, New Jersey. And we travel out with my parents to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and there's great antique shops out there. There's one called Strasburg Antique Shop. If you're ever in Pennsylvania in the Lancaster area, Strasburg Antique Shop has a lot of duck decoys, bird decoys. They have every type of imaginable antique that you can think of in their store. It's a massive, huge store, like 3 floors of antiques, and it's really large. So I go there every time we go there, usually once a year. And I got this decoy there, beautiful decoy. This is really, beautiful. So I'm going to use this. I'll set this up across from me. And then maybe we'll do some flowers along with this duck decoy. So I mentioned before too, you can always go on eBay. They sell plastic and silk flowers. So sometimes if you can't get to the flower shop and get fresh flowers, usually it's better to work with fresh flowers, real flowers when you're painting and drawing. Sometimes the silk flowers, they just don't have that real authentic, real life look. But these are okay. These are not bad. So I'm just trimming them up a little bit here. I somehow forgot to mention I was looking for one of my vases. I have usually some small vases that I use for smaller flower arrangements, and I think I can use a water bottle. I just have to look. I had one just a second ago. All right, so what I'll do is I'm going to just maybe trim this down a little bit. So I use a pair of just wire snippers. And I just take the wire snippers and trim down these silk flowers a little bit. So I just work around And then sometimes I have to use something a little bit more heavy duty. Let's see if I have something a little bit better. This might be a little better. Pruning shears. We just have to be careful of these. Pruning shears are pretty good. There we go. So now that's a little better, but I'm still looking for I trimmed down a water bottle, a plastic water bottle to a smaller size that we could put our plastic silk flowers in, so that we have a little bit of extra. We'll do the duck decoy with a little bit of flowers. Let me just see if I can look here for a second. Okay, I found this here. This is a water bottle that I just trimmed the top off of. There's some nuts and bolts and things in here, but that's nothing to worry about. So we'll just put our flowers in there, like so. That looks pretty good, I think, actually. That's fine. So you'll see that I use the, again, I couldn't find my glass vase, my small glass vase that's about this same size in my studio. I think I packed it up in a box or something to use it on a teaching course or something, and I wound up traveling with it, and then I came back and I never unpacked the box, but this will work fine. So I trimmed down a water bottle. I'll put this here. I'll put this here in front of the decoy, and I might enhance that a little bit. And maybe I'll use a lemon too. So I'll use one of these again. I'm using these styrofoam lemons. You can hear that? That's styrofoam, but it looks very real. These lemons are incredibly, the styrofoam lemons, they look just like the real things. And this way I don't have to worry about, shopping all the time and making sure I have all my fruits and vegetables for still life. So I have them in styrofoam form. And I'll set that right up across here on my still life. Okay, perfect. So now we have everything. I'm going to say let's make the back of our table maybe about, I don't know, let's say halfway. Not even halfway. Maybe like 2/3 of the way up. So this is about 2 inches up from the bottom. 2 inches up from the bottom. That's the back of the table. And then from there, we'll draw in our duck decoy. So I'll start here, and what I'll do is I'll also add in my vase with flowers. So I'm just going to make it more of a rectangular shape like this. And then I'll just maybe do some of the flowers in there. Just get some of the flower shapes. Like that. And a few more here. Like this. Okay, some flower shapes. And we have our duck decoy here. And then I think I'm going to do it the same way we did the shorebird up here. So with the shorebird, we have the teardrop shape, or the eye, one like a eye, or a teardrop on its side. So you can imagine that looks just like a teardrop on its, instead of a teardrop like this, it's turned on its side. And then we have a sphere on top of the teardrop there. So we can have the same idea with this duck decoy. I'm going to do a teardrop shape like this. Like that. And then I'm going to put the spherical top on it like this. The head of the bird like this, the duck. Like that. And then we're going to do the beak. And the beak is going to be like this. like that. And we'll put the eye here. And again, the eye is a little bit more than halfway across this sphere. Similar to the bird here. The shorebird, the eye is about, if the sphere is about this here, it's just beyond the center point of the sphere. And that looks pretty good that way. And then there's a little spot on the feathers of the, right next to the beak. And we'll have some stripes on the, some feathers. Okay. And then we're going to do a lemon too as well. So we're going to have our lemon here, like this. And we'll have a little bit of a shadow. Maybe we'll have the light coming from this direction over here, so I'll put my light insignia with the light, like this. A little bit of a shadow there, and over here by the duck decoy and the flowers too, some shadowing from the flowers, cast shadows. And then we can even erase a little bit here if we wanted to, just a little bit where the lemon is. Like that. That looks fine. Let's get painting. All right, so we have the fresh, clean water in our water container next to us here. And I might just empty what I had from the last painting, so I'll do that. I'll make sure I have absolutely crystal clear water. So I'm just changing out the water in my water bucket one more time, starting a new painting, a new composition, new fresh water. We cleaned up our palette. We're just continue to do all the things that are going to make for good results when we're working on our compositions. So next thing we'll do is I noticed that this brush might be, let's go with the number 5. I think that might be a little better. Maybe let's use this number 5 brush to start working on this. I'll start out with the darks. I'll go with some French ultramarine blue, some sap green over here, sap green, some burnt sienna. So I'm just kind of going across my palette so that I have a good variation of colors. French ultramarine blue, a little bit of sap green, a little bit of burnt sienna. I go across like that. So now I have a good variation of colors to start with. Maybe a little bit of purple here, like that. Okay. And I think I'll just start going in and working on the, and I'm just placing the paint. We did the sketch, now we just place the paint right where we sketched everything in carefully. I'll leave the eye white paper for right now. Okay, I'm going to leave the white feathers by the head. Okay. And then we have some white here. And some blue, some shadow. There might even be a little bit of some alizarin crimson Down here we'll put some alizarin crimson, a little bit of maybe cadmium orange. Put a little bit of warm wash there. And we'll start working in some of these other colors on the duck decoy. And again, I'm placing the paint onto the paper where we're mixing around some different colors, like that. Maybe there's some little bit of blue shadows over here for the vase. Some blue and some warm too. Some blue and alizarin crimson. Maybe a little bit of cerulean blue. Trying to mix my colors. Some shadow there. Okay, so we have some shadowing there. I rinse off my brush, dry off all of the water, so it's just a damp brush, and then we'll try to just smooth out that wash right here, like this. Okay, light is coming from here again. Let's go in and get some cadmium lemon yellow, straight paint, no water. We'll create our lemon. And then we'll add a little bit of cerulean blue. Maybe a little bit of that burnt sienna. Maybe some raw umber. For our shadow. Put some shadowing under there. Maybe some purple over here for this shadow. Maybe some background color here to tie in, give ourselves those lost and found edges. And again, I'm always careful not to paint too close to the beak of our decoy. Okay, and we'll have some more cerulean blue, raw umber. Maybe we'll just do a little bit of some negative shade painting, which means we paint around the subject matter and then the subject matter appears. So if we paint around these flower shapes, they will appear. And then maybe there's some sap green for some straight paint. Sap green, cerulean blue, maybe a little bit of cadmium lemon yellow. And we'll just put some greens in there, some stems and some green leaves, maybe a couple green leaf forms. Here and there. like that. And then maybe here we could just do a couple darker green. Maybe there's a couple of really nice stems there. Like that. A couple of just little flicks of the brush. That gets us some nice effects for the branches and twigs and things, stems. And maybe just a little bit of purple and blue for some so if I just do some kind of like shapes of the center of the flowers, maybe a little bit of yellow, cadmium yellow mixed with cadmium. Maybe we'll just put a few colors in the centers of the flowers like that. Maybe a little bit of red too, some alizarin crimson. Like this, a couple of, like this. And we'll let that paint dry in the centers of the flowers. Then we can go back in and maybe do a little touch up to those for the petals of the flowers and some of the light and shadow in there. But this so far is looking fine. We have our duck decoy looking really good. We just wanted to get this other stripe there. Like this here. Maybe it's a little darker under here, like so. Like that. A little bit of a damp brush just to smooth this line out a little bit. And pick up a little bit of and just the trying to blend in the duck decoy into the background a little bit. And there might be a little bit of shadow under here too, like so. Okay. And again, we just wanted to maybe blend out the center of these flowers a little bit. But I think that's fine. Just a little fun exercise we can do with a duck decoy and a lemon. Just a small bouquet of flowers, maybe some wild flowers in a small vase. And we have our little bit of shapes of some flower shapes, maybe a little more, maybe some other flower type things. Maybe there's some baby breath here. So we just do some splashing for the baby breath maybe, like this. Like that. Okay. And that is good. All right, let us take one more break before we complete this tutorial. Again, I always mention if you want to see more work of mine, I have a great new book out. Watercolor methods for success. It's down below in the comments section. And what the great thing about it is you can check out my book and check out all the pages in the book on a quick 2-minute video I have down in the description box below that you can click on. So it's just a YouTube video, 2 minutes long, and I just go through every single page of my book. So you'll see that there's over 60 paintings that I've created in my book, and there's all the photographs of all the paintings. So this way you can actually have a real close-up look at my work. It's a little different than video. You get a better look at my work when you're seeing it in a book form where the photographs are taken of my paintings, and you can see the more nuances and the real details of my work. So that's really a great thing if you're looking to paint paintings like this and want to get more of the nuances and the details. You'll see that in my book. And again, I have all the pages of my book in my quick 2-minute video, so it covers all the books. Contents inside. There's exercises in the beginning of the book that warm you up so that you can kind of slowly go into the exercises of the book knowing the fundamentals of watercolor painting in the beginning. And it covers my art supplies too as well. So you have a lot of great things to work on, and let's keep working together as we go. And we'll just finish up our last composition right here in just a second. I'm just going to take a quick break and I'll be right back. All right, so let's finish up. We'll maybe do a spritzer bottle and a paint tube. Tube of paint and a spritzer bottle. Why not? Let's put it up over here, across from us on the table. I have it on top of a white foam board. Okay, I'll start out. Maybe I'll start out with the table. Maybe 2/3 of the way across here. Like that. I'm going to start my paint tube here. Bottom of the paint tube. It gets a little thinner as it goes this way. Okay, like that. Then we're going to get the color across the top of the tube there. Then I notice there's another stripe going across here. Part of the design of the paint tube. Then another bit of stripe there. Then there's some writing and things. I don't think I'll put in every detail. And if I have to, you can always, if you see anything that looks a little bit, you need a little bit of a correction, no big deal. Maybe that was too much of a angle there. That might be a little better. Okay, and then we have the top of the tube here. Like that, and then the cap here. And then there's some striations on the cap, like that. And then we'll put our spritzer bottle here, like this. Like this. And if you need to make a correction, no big deal. Taper this out a little bit. Maybe this needs to be tapered this way a little bit, like that. That might be a little better. And then here, there's some more striations here, like that, for our bottle, our spritzer bottle. And then there's maybe inside the spritzer bottle, there's that tube that's in there. Basically a suction tube that goes up into the center of the spritzer bottle. So I think that's pretty good. There might be another portion on top of the plunger up top here. I think that's fine. Let's get right in and start painting this. And I think we'll just do a real light version of of things here. We're not going to get too involved with too much detail. This is Antwerp blue. So Antwerp blue is similar to French ultramarine. Maybe has a little more red in it, so we could put a little bit of alizarin crimson in it. Maybe a little more toward the violet color. Maybe I'll bring the intensity down a little bit with some burnt sienna. Like that. Maybe some more blue. Maybe some cobalt blue in there too. That might look good. That's probably good. And again, we're not going with crazy details here. We're just going to, again, I'm using straight paint, really no water. I used a damp brush to start with. So I took my brush, rinsed it off in the container, dried the brush off, the water off the brush with a paper towel or tissue. And then I repeat that process, rinse the brush off, take some of the water off like this. And now with just a damp brush and with a tiny bit of water in it, we're just going to thin this out like this over here. So the light's coming from this direction here. We can just help ourselves and put that insignia up here of our light insignia. This way we can make sure we're keeping a track of like where we want to have our shadows and light. So that'll be fine for there. And then some more paint. And again, we'll start down here where it's darkest. That's all. Start with our darks. And we call this alla prima. I cover this in my book in detail, great detail of what the painting main prevailing techniques and methods in watercolor are that all of the great professional artists these days and as well as in the past are using, which is basically alla prima and the glazing technique. You can do either one of the two and you can mix them together and use both at the same time as well. So if you learn both of them, then you're set. Then you can kind of just deploy them as you will when you're painting. Some paintings might be better off with the glazing technique. Some paintings are better using the alla prima technique. So that's how you approach your paintings, and when you're working with your compositions, you sort of look at them before you start and you ask yourself the question, do I want to do this alla prima or glazing technique or combination of both? And that's it. It's really that simple. And then that's how we sort of. Okay, so I'm just doing a bit of shadowing there for some of the light coming across the paint tube. And then the paint tube over here has got shadow on this side, so I'm just taking some shadow color and just doing that. Smoothing it out here and there. And just using my colors, keeping the color scheme simple. And then we'll do the same thing up here. A little bit of shadow there. And I put a little bit of light wash there. And then if I want to, I can go back in and just put a little bit of a pencil line for the back of the spritzer bottle. You can do that. You can kind of look at the spritzer bottle and see if there's any effects you see in there. Looks like there is a darker bit of reflection and shadowing at the bottom. And then there's some water in here. And I'll just add a little bit of color variation here, maybe a little bit of alizarin crimson. Maybe I'll use a little bit of the yellow, cadmium yellow, just to mix it around a little bit. If it's too much, blot it up. If you see you've added too much paint or something, just blot it up. Not a problem at all. And then you can add some background color there. You can move up to a bigger brush if you just want to cover more ground when you're doing your backgrounds. You can be more aware that when you get to an area where it's wide open and you don't have as much detail, you can take your larger brush and start to use that to cover more ground for yourself. Save a little bit of time. Okay. Reintroducing some more of that purple and blue, mostly blue with some purple in there for the background color. And I'll just go right across. Like that. It's a mystery background. Maybe a few little spots of darker tonal value there. That will blend in and be a little more relaxed looking once it dries and blends into the background. This has a bit of a shadow underneath it. Like that. And over here as well. And a shadow here too. Couple of splashes. You can lift them up too if you want a little bit. If you don't want too many, you can add some and then lift some up. Make some. And then maybe just one more bit of detail here. Let's just maybe, I'll just make a little bit of a detail on that tube inside the spritzer bottle like that. And I hope you've again had fun. Let's continue on together. We're getting together every weekend, painting in watercolor. So I'm glad you joined me here. Best of luck, everyone. Keep up the great work, and we're going to get back together as soon as you can say we'll see you again soon.